evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Hoopsville on this Thursday evening. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. A little false start on the video there, if you noticed, but that's fine because my vocal cords have false started for a while now. Bear with us as we will be dealing with some not so fun vocal cords for the rest of the evening. Hopefully we make it through the rest of the show. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. Hashtag, I said that. Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're also simulcasting on YouTube. youtube.com/ I think it's just Hoopsville. I've actually forgotten to keep looking that up. Let's do it now. All right. youtube.com/Hoopsville. Nope, that's not it. Somebody else has got that. Let's try D3Hoopsville. Bingo. There it is. So youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. That's how you get a hold of me. And you can watch the show in any of those locations. We welcome you in. Thank you for taking the time. Hope you'll enjoy our program this evening. And so much more. Again, hope you don't mind the voice. And I'm a little unshaven tonight because I just haven't had time. After I got off the air on Monday, started feeling a little unwell. A little bit of a headache, a little bit of chills, and a little bit of a sore throat. By the time I woke up on Tuesday, things were much worse. Swear I had strep, really. I thought I had strep. And I gutted it out Tuesday, hoping it would just kind of go away. Wednesday, it was not, and I had a busy weekend ahead, and the last thing I needed to do, or week, I should say, needed to do was showing up places sick. So out of abundance of caution, because I've had some interesting moments with strep in the past, I went to the doctor to get it looked at, and they did a strep test, and they did a flu test, and just out of caution, they did a COVID test. Negative on strep, negative on flu. Hello, COVID. Surprise, surprise. I had COVID in July, and none of these were the symptoms. So I have COVID, shockingly enough. We're still trying to figure out where that all is. As a result, no work this week, except for Hoopsville. And we're hopeful to get through it. Depends on the moment, but sometimes my voice is just not there. I'm actually pushing a little bit harder. I actually should probably boost the audio a little bit here. Pushing a little bit harder to try and be a little bit more vocal. I'm going to literally play with the settings as I mention that now. I try and give myself a little bit more help in that category because it isn't fun. I'm hoping that's not too much. If I have to, I will adjust accordingly. But anyway, not the most fun. It says it's got feedback, so we'll readjust the settings yet again. Not sure why it's got feedback, but doing our best. Hopefully you can hear us just fine and everything will work out just fine, as they say. So I'm otherwise okay, just bummed, as it were. By the way, if you hear a little bit of whining behind us, Puppy Tucker is in the studio tonight because I'm the only one in the house right now. Not sure why he doesn't want to hang out with Dad. Usually he does, but apparently he doesn't right now. So hopefully he won't whine too much. He'll come over and sit where he normally sits with me. He'll leave the studio a little bit later. Anyway, hopefully we'll get through the show with my voice okay. And c'est la vie. I did jam up on some meds before the show. I've got a full thing of of lemon tea with some honey. I got a decaf coffee for some heat. And we, like I said, some medicine, including if you've ever had lidocaine in a viscous solution. Oh, that is lovely stuff. And I'm saying that sarcastically. Gargling that is not ideal. Let's talk some news around Division III, shall we? We'll start with the fact that it was announced earlier today by some reports out of Texas that Sul Ross is pursuing Division II. We had heard about this several months ago. I did some heavy lifting on it, and I got a lot of info on it, but nothing I could report. And the reason I couldn't report it was some sources were great and it was solid, but I had no sources closer that would allow me to go with it. But basically what I gathered, and we meant to follow up to this week, we should have realized the NCAA convention, that was something we should have followed up on. And honestly, I just lost track. But Sul Ross is getting an invitation to the Lone Star Conference, which is, I believe, where they've been before, which geographically would put them kind of in the center of the conference. Apparently what I'm told is the mentality by those somewhere at the college is that reduction in the ASC travel and Division III travel will allow them to save money to be able to do Division II. There's some drawbacks to that. I don't think they're completely considering. I don't think they're considering the fact that there's more Division II games than there are in Division III in all sports. There are the scholarships, obviously, to consider. There's going to have to be some improvements to facilities. The Board of Regents gave them the thumbs up back in the fall. I want to say October-ish. That's when I started getting on the story, when that happened. But we'll see. So the process is they have to have an invite from a Division II conference, just as Division III has now passed for any future schools to come into Division III. That would really kick in next year, or it should for the January 2024 applications. So they have to have an invite to a conference, and then they have to get the application done by February sometime. I always lose track of the date in February. And then they have to be accepted, and that usually takes place in about June or July after the whole process has gone through its steps. We believe they've been invited by the Lone Star. That's everything I've heard. And so we assume the application is going in. I will be honest, there are people who have told me that they are fearful that this will mean the end of Sul Ross, that they are not going to be able to financially do this. We'll see. It also hurts the ASC tremendously. In football, they're losing members left and right. They're about to fall down to 4 if this goes through in that conference. That means they would have 2 seasons, 2023 and 2024. Am I right? Or is it 24 or 25? I've lost track of some other movements. They would lose the bid by the end of the 25 season, I believe, at the latest. And so there's some scrambling there. There's some scrambling in terms of membership. There's some scrambling elsewhere in the ASC. The ASC is in turmoil internally, even though the numbers look okay. So we'll see how this plays out. We'll keep track of it. We'll try and get some of our experts who know this a little bit better on later. I know Riley Zayas has been following it. He certainly tweeted out something today. Maybe we'll get a quick reaction from him. But really looking to get some of those who are more closely aligned with everything to see what they have to say. So Sul Ross apparently going to try to move to D2. That joins Nichols, despite a tweet I had earlier today saying Newman, Nichols, and Utica, 2 schools we've reported previously. Utica almost a year ago we reported it, and Nichols we reported it several months back are also headed towards D2. We believe their applications are in place. Though Utica could be a year away. I have actually heard some say that Utica might not apply for another year. I don't think that's the case. I think they'll apply right away, right or now. And that will mean they're headed to the Northeast 10, and those ice hockey programs will move to Northeast 10 as well. So we'll keep track of the Sul Ross news. On paper, it may seem like, oh, that's great, but it's not. It's not a good move for a lot of reasons. Another thing I saw that came up on the TweetDeck today, I use TweetDeck, is that someone's been asking around about the top 16s. I happened to talk to the committee chairs recently, and remember that last year the men released the top 16 seeds about midway through February. It was right after the second regional rankings, just so everybody could kind of understand as they start to look at who may be hosting and such, who those teams may be. Those top 16, when they were released, did not indicate all the other particulars like who could host. For example, 2 Christopher Newport schools. Hold on a second. I had to say something to Tucker. So anyway, I have asked, and apparently it sounds like men are buttoning things up and hope to announce sometime in the next week when they plan to do those top 16s. If timing is right, it would be after that second regional ranking. Again, the men are doing rankings on Tuesdays this year. They're meeting and doing them on Tuesday. Women are meeting and having them on Wednesday. So I'm assuming the top 16 for the men would come out Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not positive. So anyway, look for that to come out. And but we'll learn more in the next week, apparently. Speaking of the committee chairs, because I have been talking to them recently, we will get them on the show next week, a week from today. So hopefully by then we'll have some of the answers and we can ask more about it. If we don't, then we can certainly ask about it at that time. So that we will have both Megan Wilson on the women's side and Sarah Quadracki on the men's side joining us on the show next Thursday to talk about everything. We were hoping to have them on in December, but our hiatus due to my father's health and my father's death delayed us from doing that. So looking forward to having them on. Normally we'd have them on December, and then we'd have them on at the marathon. We're just going to have them on next week and then we'll postpone when the next appearance is on. I'm not sure when. I think we got them on, actually, now I think about it. At least the men, we got on the show after they actually did that top 16 last year. And so maybe that's something we'll do. We'll cross that bridge a little bit closer to when we get to it. Nothing against some of you out there. You're all looking ahead at the end of February already. You're talking about selections and Pool Bs and Pool Cs and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No disrespect. We've got just over 6 weeks left of the basketball season, and I just want to enjoy that right now. First regional rankings will come out I just lost track. 8, I believe. Obviously, we'll get closer. Marathon's our official kickoff to regional rankings coming around the corner in the final month sprint to the season. So that will be again, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be on the air with that. So looking forward to that. But just pump the brakes on everything else, you guys. Let's enjoy them now. Let's enjoy the games that are taking place now. Like that Keene State Middlebury game was bonkers good. I've watched some of it, but not all of it, due to some headaches on my end. I wanted to watch on the big screen, but thank you, Keene State, for having it on YouTube. Watched it there. What was the other game? Just the other. I've only caught a little bit of it, but I'm going to go back and watch more of the John Carroll Baldwin Wallace game. Not feeling well has kind of hurt that a little bit. So anyway, looking forward to all that. So again, quick recap. Saul Ross is apparently moving to D2 along with to the Lone Star Conference along with Utica and Nichols. We have not heard, by the way, from Division III as to who's applied to come into the division. We'll find out more about that soon. Top 16s. We'll hopefully get some more information on when they're going to be released. What the plan is sometime in the next week. And with that in mind, we'll have the committee chairs on next Thursday. By chance, we'll talk to them a little bit more, and our marathons in 2 weeks' time on the 2nd. A quick note, next week's show that we were talking about, that's going to be a 1 p.m. show. I have to work later in the evening, some basketball games, and now that I've lost a whole bunch of work this week, I definitely need to be working every game possible. So that's next Thursday. We'll be out at 1 p.m. Monday's show coming up, usual time, 7 o'clock Eastern time. All right, so with that, so let's talk about the guests on the show. You might notice over the corner, thanks to my son, he's put the sign together. We're going to have number 8, Wheaton, Illinois, Mike Schauer on the show. Speaking of committee chairs, he's last year's committee chair and the previous season. We'll talk to Mike here coming up in a bit. Sorry, you're seeing me mouth words to Tucker. Number 5, Smith women's basketball will join us. Obviously, Smith is a women's school, but just in case you are new to Division III, Smith women's basketball. Lynn Hersey will join us to talk about her program. Number 1, Trinity, Texas women's basketball coach Cameron Hill will be on the show. And number 17, Guilford men's basketball Tom Palombo on the program. And the women's top 25 double take. We've got Riley Zayas, as I mentioned earlier, along with Scott Peterson. They will join us to go through their thoughts on the latest top 25 on the women's side. So there you go. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to start rolling with Mike Schauer, including any questions you might have for us. Scott Peterson says, hopefully Megan can let us know when the 22-23 pre-championship manual is being released. Actually, Scott, I have info on that because I asked her. Apparently, there's new software with all this. And by the way, one of the questions I also asked is, could we make some of these handbooks universal? Because in every sport, there's universal things that don't need to be written 6 different ways or formatted in 10 different ways. Anyway, long story short, they're apparently fixing some of the issues. She's hoping it'll be out no later than January 31st, but really they're looking to get it out, let's say, in the next week or week and a half. So, no, that is coming out. They're aware it's not out yet, and they will get us that soon. But thank you, Scott, for that reminder, because I knew I had forgotten to mention something there. Scott also mentions he got 3 dogs of himself I can send over and play. Yes, Tucker would love to play with the other puppies. The only problem is you all wouldn't hear me. It would be chaos in here. Tucker is one of those pups. All right, we'll take a break. So far, so good on the voice, so I know it sounds different. We'll see how long this one lasts. It helps when you put lidocaine down it a little bit. I don't swallow, but it goes down a little bit, so it numbs it. Well, hopefully that holds off for 2 hours. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Back with more after this.
These are your teams, your players, your community of fans. This is where they play, where they practice, where you cheer. At every meet, every event, every game. Your community is passionate, dedicated, supportive. You know the tension of a close game and the thrill of the win. So while you're cheering, keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
It starts right when you hit the court. You imagine your finest moment. The game-winning shot that gets you to the dance, a monster dunk or no-look pass, and cutting down the net. Sports lets us dream of our own success and prepare us for our finest moments on and off the court.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us. All of us.
To stop sexual assault. Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Rolling along here. Tucker is not being cooperative. Usually he will lie down next to me, right at my feet, go to sleep, no big deal. He was on the couch earlier. I thought that's what he would do. Apparently he must think other people are in the house because the door is shut and he's ticked. So if you hear him whining in the background, I apologize. The little pup is just being difficult. Mommy will be home. Or well, actually, my son should be home shortly. He can grab him after the interview with Mike Schauer. Or maybe you'll just see the door open. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. Join us on Twitter, or Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're live simulcasting the show. Welcome to comment there. We're also live simulcasting on YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. Got it all out. Speaking of the committee members, I thought it was kind of apropos. I debated, do I bring Mike Schauer on today's show? Or do I bring him on next Thursday's show before I probably talk to the new committee chairs? I decided to give Mike at least one bit of a break and just bring him on this week. So joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, the aforementioned Mike Schauer. Sir, good to have you. I hope you are well. Thanks for taking the time. You're at least smiling.
I'm doing great. I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to join you. And looking forward to the opportunity to talk a little bit about D3 basketball and Wheaton basketball specifically.
I should point out, I know you were very busy with the committee role over the years, including 2 years as chair, where one of them you had to deal with the tough choice of calling off the men's basketball tournament. On top of coaching, that's a lot of burden. I noticed you felt like letting go of the committee ship was good, but you still wanted the challenge. So you're now the athletics director. We should point out on the website, it just says athletics director. Your email still says acting. Is someone just delusional? And I'm leaving that up to interpretation.
No, it is acting athletic director, which is a fancy way of saying interim. So it's been a challenge. It's been fun. There are times it's a lot, Dave, but I was an AD at the other two places briefly I was at before Wheaton. But it's a lot this time of year, but I enjoy it and thankful for the opportunity to do it.
Quickly on that topic, though, as you said, it's busy. Wheaton's a big overall athletic department. Normally those in that role are not coaches, and this acting tag has been on for a while, sir. What do you know the future? Do you want to be AD and step away from coaching? I know that's putting you on the spot a little bit, but I am curious.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I think the answer I always give, Dave, is I've been doing this as my 30th year of coaching. And I don't know that I'm going to do this till 65. But I also don't know that I'm ready to stop either. So the broad answer is I don't think I'm going to coach to retirement, but I don't know that I'm ready to give up coaching yet. So I really haven't thought too much about it. And the time will come, obviously, where there'll need to be that discussion. But Wheaton's given us a little runway here and not putting a lot of pressure on me to decide and to open the AD position here for a little bit longer. So how's that for a political non-answer?
It's a brilliant non-answer. I also noticed you put a little caveat in there that the school's letting you decide, meaning I think they would like you to be AD.
No, what I mean by letting me decide is I think if I said, hey, we need to go back, we need to figure it out. It's time to post it and split the positions back. I think they would let me have a little bit of say in that. They certainly, they'll do a search for the AD position, and if I'm interested in pursuing it, they would let me do that. But I certainly think I could say I'm not interested in the AD and go back to coaching. But there, the time my son is on our team, Dave, and I'm not going to do anything too quickly with him still on our team. And so when I say they've given me a choice, they've kind of let me, have some freedom about the length of time.
That makes total sense. And I know your son being on the team, we're going to get to that. So I can appreciate that for sure. But anyway, we'll move on to the more important things. Your team's having a bonkers year. I did notice a handful of grad students. So you had the advantage of guys who came back from the last couple of years that really had made this Thunder program click since your magical run to the championship weekend early in your committeeship. But give me a sense, because I'll be honest, as much... Granted, I'm the outsider because I'm on the East Coast, and as much as Bob Quillman usually gives us a lot of great intel on the CCIW, I think this might be one of the more confusing seasons in the conference, and that's not a knock. It's more about I can't get a sense of what every team is. So tell me about yours. Tell me about the Thunder. What's working? What are you guys improving on, etc.?
Yeah, so, we have, obviously we had a pretty good season last year, graduated a lot of guys that played a lot. We have 3 transfers, including 2 grad transfers. So we're older, even though some of those guys are inexperienced with us, they're older young men. And so I think there's a maturity to us when you have 22, 23-year-old guys that kind of calms you a little bit. So, but it's really been, in a lot of ways, Dave, some of our returning guys, Eli Considine, Nick Chavello, Andrew Williams, Eddie Scott, guys that were on our roster last year that really were role players on last year's team that have really, kind of stepped up and improved their game and really made us deep and versatile. And then obviously Tyson Cruikshank, who is one of the better guards in the country, he's having the type of year you would anticipate he would have. He's been great. And so we're long, we're versatile, we're older. We have really good chemistry and culture and all that type of stuff. And it's a fun team to coach, to be honest with you, because they care about each other and they care about winning. So it's actually a pretty easy team to coach. But that's our team. We're long, we're versatile. We'll defend you. We can play a lot of different ways. We've got a lot of different ways to get offense. But it's both some new faces. So those 3 transfers, all of whom have contributed. And then just really the improvement and growth of older guys that have been in the program, really, program guys that have grown into a role.
I think you've nailed really where my challenge always is. There's a lot of people who talk about recruiting, and there's a lot of people who talk about transfers. And I've seen way too many teams stumble and fall and never come together with those. Oh, listen, we got a D1 transfer. Wonderful. We'll never hear from that individual ever again because it didn't work, or they're not as talented as everyone thinks they are because they got the D1 tag on them. And I know going into the season, I kind of looked at you guys and went, oh, you lost a lot. Oh, you got some good pieces back. I don't know how to gauge it. And I guess it's that what if those upperclassmen step up? What if those things all gel together that I truly can't put together? So with that in mind, obviously continuing to grow, what is it you guys are still working on that you hope will get better, that will make this team a dangerous threat late February into March if you can get there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we've got to be, a little more consistent rebounding the basketball. At times we've been very good. Our game Saturday against Illinois Wesleyan, really a key to them is our ability to defensively rebound the basketball and limit offensive possessions for them. That's probably a big one. And then just continuing to get better defensively, Dave. We've got some guys that are older, like TJ Askew, but he's new to our defensive philosophy. So he really can get quite a bit better as we practice stuff because it's still new to him relative to what he did previously. So, I think we can continue to refine a little bit how good we are defensively, and we certainly can get better at rebounding the basketball.
Oh, I hear that rebounding comment a lot from coaches. I'm not surprised to hear that. Early losses this season, the only two you really have suffered. The loss to John Carroll in the fourth game, similar team, got a lot of transfers trying to figure themselves out, certainly proving themselves. And a loss to Elmhurst. Both games, interestingly, at home, the Elmhurst game in overtime, though those were all on the front side of the season. You've played really well since then, including the win over Carroll, the win over Carthage this week as well, and you got IWU coming up. What is it about those two losses we should know about, and how is it fueling the team now?
Yeah, the first thing is, John Carroll's, both those teams are very talented and physically gifted. The John Carroll game, we went 1 for 21 from the 3-point line. And so what I got out of that is I still have a pretty competitive basketball team that, still gave us a chance to win despite shooting the ball so poorly. We've actually shot the ball pretty well otherwise on the season. And then candidly, Dave, the second game we lost because I'm not a very good coach. So, we were up 3 with whatever it was, 5 point some seconds left. And typically we foul in that situation. And I simply overcoached. And Elmhurst went down, hit a tough shot, banked one in, and then ended up winning in overtime. And so, that's one, if coaches are going to hold their players accountable, which we all do, I think as coaches, we have to be accountable. I overcoached. And it doesn't mean if we had fouled that we necessarily would have won. It's easy to say, hey, if I did something different, we would have won. I've seen teams lose while fouling, but we practice and talk about fouling in that situation, and we didn't do it. And that is 100% on me.
All right, folks, we're going to readjust the schedule. Wheaton is 15-1 this season. They are 7-0 in conference play. Mike Schauer 0-1 on the season, 0-1 in CCIW action.
Fair.
I appreciate the insight. That's tremendous stuff, and it's very helpful. So moving forward, you got Illinois Wesleyan coming up. You're then on the road for a tough stretch, 3 games in a row. You're going to be at North Park, who's playing well this season. You're going to be at Carthage, who's playing tremendously well this season. And I think you're playing at the unknown. Not only is it Rock Island, but it's an unknown Augustana team that I think is still figuring themselves out. This next 4 games has a lot on the line, and only one of them's at home.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, I feel like I could say that almost over any 4-game stretch of our conference run. And
totally fair.
This is going to be a little bit coach speak, which I try to avoid, but I'm really just focusing on Saturday, right? I'm aware of the stretch that's coming up, but I think to talk about what we're going to do with North Park or Carthage on the road gets a little bit ahead of ourselves. Illinois Wesleyan will provide enough of a challenge for us at home without having to worry about playing on the road. I will tell you talk about our league. I think because Carthage and North Park are a little bit unexpected good, people didn't necessarily anticipate it. I'm not sure they're getting the national attention that perhaps they deserve. They're really good teams, and if the win North Park just had over Illinois Wesleyan is significant, both for our league, their program, and both Sean Smith and Steve Jarakovic are doing a great job. Those teams are very good.
I'm voting for Carthage at the very least. North Park has been the unknown, but that helps me pivot a little bit. Yes, I know you're not thinking about those games, and I realize I'm not going to find out what you're going to do in those, but the CCIW has been tough for me. I know when I was on Quillman's show back in October, there was a question about it. I said the top was so significantly ahead of the bottom last year, and the top lost so much that coming back to the bottom, and I'm just using those in general terms, leaves a lot of questions that we just don't know. And now we're halfway through the season, and some of those bottom teams are the top teams. It's hard to gauge. I know the CCIW is always tough. I know the CCIW is one of the top 5 in the conferences in the country. It always produces national powers to talk about. What is challenging for me, and maybe you can provide an insight which will help us understand these games coming up, is what is it about this season that's so what seems to be different than we've seen in years past?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, if I'm really honest, I think it's just simply the names are different. I think if North Park had Illinois Wesleyan on their chest, and the same records, people would view them a little differently. I think it's been unexpected. They're really good. And so I think the league is still really strong, and it's a little bit of teams that people didn't anticipate. Coaches didn't vote for it. The national media didn't vote for it.
That's the part.
That's the part. And so you look at North Park's record and season, and you're kind of waiting, if you haven't seen them and watched them, to go, is this for real? And I'm just going to tell you it is. They're really good. And, I think our league continues to be really deep. I don't know that we have, I think the three teams from last year, the three Sweet 16 teams, and then obviously Wesleyan got to the Elite Eight, almost to the national championship game. Those teams you could recognize going in, hey, those are elite teams. We kind of knew it going into last year. The part is there's so much uncertainty this year. We didn't quite know who to identify, including us. And so I think it's just taking a little bit of time to go, is this really the how good these teams are? So that's my opinion. I watching Carthage and North Park play, they're just really good teams. They would be competitive with everybody in the country.
Yeah, I certainly don't disagree with you. I don't know about if they had the other schools' name on their jersey, because the one exception, let's look at North Park quick, and I'm not trying to dive in with you about another team, but my point of the confusion is North Park was 10-14 last year. They were 3-11 in the COVID year, 4-21 back-to-back seasons prior to that, 5-20. It's more about, oh my Lord, are they really that good, or are we seeing something smoke and mirrors and it's all going to fall apart?
No, I mean, they have 9 transfers. They're really good. That doesn't mean our league's good enough that they could and probably will lose some games, just like, that's the way competitive leagues are. But, there's no smoke and mirrors about them at all.
No, I get that. And I think we're all understand, but I think that's what's made the CCIW so interesting, confusing, whatever you want to call it this year, on top of the fact that we're seeing it nationwide too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the WIAC is not what we're used to. We're a couple of elite teams at the top and everybody else beats each other up and beats them. And you've got everybody kind of coalescing towards the middle. And again, that's not a negative. It just means that it's more, the top has come down, the bottom has come up. And it's gotten so much better. From your committee hat, your former committee hat, your former rankings hat, what does this mean for the conference? Does it mean that this is a conference that can seed 3 or 4 teams and do well in the tournament? Is this a conference this year that it's going to take the right matchups for someone to break through?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the truthful answer, Dave, a year ago, I probably would have been one of the most informed Division III coaches in the country about everybody. I was following it closely. I was watching everybody play. I was trying to watch teams from all over the country. I really haven't done that this year. So
very disappointed.
How good. I've had a few other things going on, as we've talked about. So how good we are, or North Park is, or that to other teams around the country, I don't know that I can give a strong answer to that. I can tell you, relative to previous seasons, we'll have a few teams that won't be an easy out. I don't want to, I don't know that we don't have the same experienced teams we had a year ago, and so it's a little bit unknown, but. I certainly think we can play with anybody I've seen, and I think that would be true for several other teams in our league as well.
I'll pivot back to your team to wrap up with that in a moment. I did want to ask one more question, as from a committee's perspective, from the work you guys did and where things stand now. What still needs to be approved upon in terms of making the championships, the tournament, the division, the sport, whatever, even better? What did you hope to accomplish that didn't get accomplished?
Yeah, those are great questions. I think one of the things I really like that we have done is I think we've increased the opportunity for participation. We've increased, things such as the bench size and things like that, because we're really the championship at some level is about student athlete experience. We obviously use that all the time. And so it was always hard as a coach to eliminate guys from that experience because of an NCAA limitation on roster sizes and that type of stuff. So I'm really pleased that Sarah and others and Alex and the NCAA found a way to say, hey, how do we get more people involved, more student athletes involved? So that part I would say I'm really, really pleased with. without diving too deep, that I think there's criteria stuff that I would like to see either expanded or refined. I'm not sure we always are. We are the criteria is what we need to follow. I'd say that all the time. We have to do what the criteria states, but I think I think we need a national metric, is what I've always said. There needs to be some way to compare teams nationally. It's hard to do that. The system is really designed to do regional rankings. It's really designed well to compare us to WashU or us to Carthage. It's not as designed as well to compare Wheaton to Williams, because you're going to use criteria that is regionalized to do it. So I don't know that I regret that we didn't get it done, but that would be a critique of the criteria that I would provide as somebody who's been a chair and would say, I think there are ways that we can maybe enhance and improve the criteria.
I totally agree with you. And I also know that every time one thing gets refined, something else comes up to be refined again. It's a never-ending refinement. Not that that's a knock. It's just I know what people are constantly working. All right, I want to pivot back to your team before I let you go. Again, that grind coming up. Obviously, it's the CCIW in general, but that's a tough stretch where 3 of the games are on the road. A lot of unknowns, but also kind of the top and the conference trying to stay ahead. Obviously, want to get home games in the conference tournament if you can. What are you telling the team? What's the conversation in the locker room, in the video room, on the practice facility, whatever it is? What's the conversation about what you all need to do, whether it's day by day, game by game, or whatever the stretch ahead?
Yeah, this is going to sound coach speak as well, but it's really just trying to do, worry about today. Tomorrow's got enough problems of its own, that it's really try to be good today. You don't ever arrive. You're always in pursuit. And so every day we show up, you've got to try to meet our standard, get to our ability. And so really, as we look at, we don't talk a ton about opponents. We will do a scout. We're really a program, a team that tries to fight to get to our level of play. And if we can do that and get beat, if we do that and we lose, that team that night was simply better. But most nights, if we get to our best level of play, we're going to have a pretty good chance to win. That's the message. Who we play, the opponent, that changes. Obviously, you're in the league, so you're going to play everybody home and away. You got to play them at some point. So when they come up, where they are, what the stretch is, we don't spend a lot of time worrying about that. We just take the next one that's up and go play to the best of our ability.
Yeah, well said. I know it's coach speak. I know what to expect on this show. We're thinking about changing the segment to the NABC coaches speak, but we'll cross that bridge another time. Hey, sir, appreciate the time. Thanks as always. Love chatting with you. I know we'll chat down the road at some point about other things, but in the meantime, congrats to the team. Congrats on the season. Good luck the rest of the way. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah, I got 2, Dave. One, as always, thank you for your work. I predate this show. I predate, in some ways, D3Hoops.com at the Division III level. And this is a significant part, and it has D3Hoops.com, Hoopsville has really generated interest and other people that are starting to do similar things. And so the value to Division III athletics is significant. So thank you. And you are a significant part of what we do. And then the last thing I would like to say is when you do your for any of the guys, for Bob Quillman and anybody else that you have on your show to do the mock selections, when you get to the 20th pick, people, listen to Dave.
I love you. You, sir.
They would have gotten it. They just didn't listen to you.
I might have to go get that audio and bring it back in multiple ways. You are, sir, you're now invited on whenever you want. In fact, if you'd like to come on and do the mock selections, you're welcome to do that too.
It's great. I would do it.
We'll talk. Hey, thanks again, Mike. You're awesome. I'm waiting for Twitter to blow up now. You take care, and I'll talk to you soon. That is Mike Schauer joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline. That was outstanding and totally unexpected. But, I mean, he's right. Let's be honest. All right, got to take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears, talk women's basketball. Head out to the Northeast where they're getting a bit of a snowstorm. We'll talk to Lynn Hersey, the head coach of Smith Women's Basketball. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. So much more ahead.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault. Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you've got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at D3sports.com. All scrolling at the bottom of your screen, including Facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're live simulcasting the show. Don't see any questions there, but you're welcome to pop one in there. We'll pay attention to that. Also live simulcasting on YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. We'll pay attention to that. Quick note that I forgot in our news items, we mentioned that NYU over the week, or on Monday's show, had a water pipe burst. We talked to Meg Barber, their head coach, about that. And it sounds like, though it's not official, they are out for the rest of the season. They are not going to get into their brand new gymnasium the rest of the season due to that water pipe. Roanoke had the same thing happen to them at their semi-new gymnasium, so all of their sports have been moved out for the rest of the year. It is something that happens, and unfortunately it's happened a few times in Division III of late. Speaking of women's basketball, Smith basketball is having a tremendous season, building off of what was a tremendous season last year as well. They certainly didn't do anything unexpected, I guess you could say, this year, but they're up to 5th in the national rankings, and I always love talking to Lynn Hersey. So joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline is the aforementioned Smith women's basketball coach. Again, coach, up to 5th in the rankings. You've got to be bonkers excited about the fact that this team is not only being respected that way, but you are building on what was a tremendous NCAA run last season.
Yeah, Dave, well, first, thanks for having me. Appreciate being on. And obviously, super proud of this group. We had 6 players defer during COVID, and we had 2 more take a graduate year so that we would have the opportunity to try to come back from that Wisconsin Whitewater game, which still is sticking with all of us. And have another shot to see what we can do this year. And, so far we're trying to improve every day and stay as competitive as we can and stay true to who we are. And so far we've been all right.
It's interesting because the NEWMAC schedule is also kind of just wonky. You're what, 2-0 in NEWMAC play right now, when most teams have played about half their conference. And we were saying it in Vegas when Wellesley was there, and soon to be NEWMAC member Salve Regina, only to add more to the chaos, that conference schedule has taken on a bunch of different evolutions over the years. How challenging, I mean that I'm going to build towards back to the season, but how challenging is that unknown of which conference schedule you're going to deal with when you're trying to build a schedule that's going to improve a team and, in your case, position it as best as possible for the NCAAs?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, my personal feeling on it is we've moved to the single round robin. It's very similar to the NESCAC. We're right in the same, obviously Region 1, Region 2, but same, geographic location to play a lot of those NESCAC schools. And, going to a single round robin allows a lot of our new MAC teams to be able to compare ourselves to them and to compete with them. And I think that's really important. I think being able to go up against the Tufts and the Bowdens and the Amherst, some of the traditional powerhouses from this region, and be able to play them and as a conference do well against them is an important thing for the new MAC. So I think the single round robin has really helped us in that way, and it allows each coach to craft their schedule, sort of based on where their team is. And I think that's, that kind of can suit a lot of different programs, in the building phase or, whatever window you're in. And so I'm a big proponent of it. And I'm hoping that's what we're staying with for the time to come.
Would you still, I know you guys have a relationship, obviously, with the group around you, the Babsons, the Wellesleys, et cetera. Would you still, per NESCAC, kind of have a little three, and I'm using general terms here, but you have a little battle amongst them on top of that?
Yeah, I think some of us are working on that. We play Springfield, they're right down the road. So we play Springfield twice. One doesn't count for the conference. But since they're, so close, it's always a competitive game. Their program has been doing, exceptionally well. It's a great home away. That's a smart move for us to add them and for them to add us. So, we have that. I think some of the schools in New-Mac are trying to do that. Babson does it as well with Springfield. So yeah, I think that's another option there when you're looking to fill games.
And then Salve Regina comes in. So if you're in that single round, you get one more game. That'll certainly help. So pivoting to this season, you knew you were going to have a good season, probably with those deferments, what you guys did and all that. And I know most of the schedule was done before you're tackling what you did in March with the Whitewater game and all. But what was the mentality schedule-wise going in? Because so far it's obviously worked, but I know you're kind of on a double-edged sword there. You want to prepare your team, but you also don't want to take it too easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year our SOS, I think, ended up being like pretty high, like third or, top 3 in the country. The goal was to try to do that again. I think we have the teams around us to be able to build a schedule that does really challenge you. And I think it's about being able to, fuel the competitors you have in your program. And that's a big part of what we do here when we recruit. It's part of the DNA, the competitive nature, the competitive mindset. And so a competitive schedule goes along with that. I mean, it's part of, who we are, what we want to be about. And, it prepares us for a game like Wisconsin Whitewater on the road, in front of their 4,000 fans, going to overtime and, all those moments, and so I just, big believer in that. This gives us a chance to host in the NCAA tournament. I think, ultimately those teams that go to the Final Four, most of them have 4 home games before they go there. And, the reality is you're not really in that conversation unless you have the SOS, to go head to head with some of those other really great teams. So I think we're really aware of it. We craft the schedule very carefully. And we're fortunate enough to have the teams around us that really help us, and hopefully we help them, so that our region stays really strong.
Obviously, this conference is really good too. You've got Babson at 14-1 this season. Springfield's having another great season at 11-5. WPI, Wheaton, they both have 11 wins this season. This is a really tough conference right now, and even if it is single round robin, it doesn't matter. You got to get your way through it.
Yeah, it's a great conference. We have great coaches, great playing styles. Every team has a unique, different style. Great players in the conference. And I think last year's push with Springfield, and Babson, all three of us getting in, our conference getting 2 at-larges, and then we proved that, we deserved that, by the run that each team made. I'm really proud of that. Obviously every time we play Springfield or Babson, it's, you got to bring your best. The coaches push you to coach up, and the players are, the games are intense and they're fun, and it's what you need to be a successful conference, and it's what you need to be able to compete nationally. So, I definitely, I think the new MAC is, certainly strong. And, again, I think, we're able to prove it a little bit more because of the ability to play, obviously within conference, but some of the teams outside the conference as well.
I'll talk about this team, 9-game winning streak right now, as we mentioned, 15-1 overall, 5th in the latest polls. 15-game win streak in the conference, we should point out. You're first in the conference in scoring at 72 points a game, first in free throw percentage at 74. And by the way, that's not a slouch. Those numbers are coming down across the country, and it's, you're pretty well up there. You're second in field goal percentage, third in three-point percentage. There's a lot of rights there. Any other things you're doing right? Is there anything else you guys are still working on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really think we're playing our best basketball. I mean, I think we have a lot of room to get better. I think our defense is starting. Like, we started obviously a very strong offensive team. We always have been. We have a lot of scorers. We have a lot of depth. We have an inside-out game. A lot of players who can step up on different days and really produce. So, I think offensively, I always knew we had a lot of good pieces there. I think ultimately, like, our defense is starting to come together better now. We're starting to be more cohesive, smarter defenders, less fouling, and certainly, continuing to work on our defensive schemes for each team and executing that at a high clip. So, I think we have a lot of room to get better. And that's hopefully what the day-to-day is for. And I mean, our goals are very clear. We know what we're trying to do. And, we got to take care of each other and take care of our chemistry and culture and, grow as individuals. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not, it's not as simple as X's and O's. And, we're just trying to excel in every area, and hopefully we're peaking at the right time.
I get that.
That's our goal.
Obviously, the peaking's the important part, because we've seen teams that are really good peak early, and then March just kind of deflates on them. You guys certainly were heading in the right direction last year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of experience that we gained from that run, and understanding how to play deep into March, and how do you take care of your body? How are you handling your academics while you're being an athlete, and the grind of all of that. So I think that our veteran players will only be able to really kind of use that experience to continue to help us on the day-to-day, come in and be fresh and be ready to compete and prepare the way that we do. And, again, I think experience does go a long way. And so I'm happy that we've the one thing about that Wisconsin Whitewater game is, I think this season could prove that, we sort of failed smart, and that's something where you can take a loss and you lose and you fail in that moment. And, it's really what you do after it. And, I think our team has really bought into, like, that can be a smart loss for us if we handle our business the right way moving forward, in terms of what we learned. So it's a mature group, and super excited to coach them. And I go to battle with anybody any day with that team. They're just, they know how to get it done. So try not to get in their way, and, see what we can do.
Well, and to some degree, to be honest, sometimes it's not so much a loss as the other team just won.
Yeah, well, they played very well. Certainly no disrespect to them. They gave us everything we could handle. But we put ourselves in a position to win that game, and we learn from what we fell short on. But again, that's what it takes. Like, I don't know if you get further until you go through, that experience, and hopefully, a lot of it will come back to us and serve us well this year.
I want to quickly talk about a couple of your players. Obviously, there's a lot of players to talk about. You have 3 in double figures and nothing against Jesse Ruffner. But I want to focus on Morgan Morrison, leads the conference in rebounding, second in scoring, second in field goal percentage. She's averaging 16.8 points a game and a share shy of a double-double at 9.4 rebounds a game. She's had 14 games in double digits. The superlatives are pretty outstanding. And we'll get to Caitlin Pikanka as well, but I want to start with Morgan. She has been the rock.
Yeah, she's just been really steady for us. She really requires more than one player to play her. She's very versatile, has great footwork. It's just strong, physical, consistent, and has produced for us a lot. And certainly we're working on still playing out of all the systems and the schemes that coaches are coming up with to sort of slow her down. And, I think that's where the depth and, our guard play can continue to grow. And, it will certainly make us a really tough team to defend if we're really executing on, both the interior and out in the perimeter at the same rate. But Morgan's, she's been outstanding. And has really had a lot to adjust to game to game. So I just really applaud her focus and effort and sort of willingness to just go at each game and really attack it.
Well, and what's interesting is you have Morgan never takes a 3-point shot, and neither does Caitlin. And you then have this dynamic that I think teams would kill for, to have this double-edged sword, twin towers, whatever you want to call it, down inside, because you cannot double team because the other one will get you.
Yeah. I mean, it's also about their ability to cut off each other and read each other and be really good at, our ability to pass to each other and high-low and also our guards. I give them a lot of credit. We focused a lot on, getting the ball inside and how to do that. And, I think that they are really in tune to sort of the talent they have on the interior, and they benefit. They're a shooting group, and the more that we get the ball inside, the more open their threes become, and it's definitely the balance that we want to have.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, Caitlin Pikanka was a preseason honorable mention in our All-America list. She scored 1,000 points. She's 5th in the conference in rebounding, 4th in field goal percentage. And again, you get that double-edged sword with those two that everybody else ends up being pretty darn good because they end up being open with everybody focused on them.
Yeah, Caitlin's having a great year too. I mean, obviously, I think her defense this year has been just a really cornerstone for us inside. And in addition, she's just an absolute competitor. I mean, there isn't another player I've ever coached who loves a bigger stage and a bigger moment. And, that's what fuels her. And, I think it just rubs off on the rest of the team. I think Jessie Ruffner is also very much like that. And, when you have those three sort of, taking a lot of shots, getting a lot of the looks, and all three are ready to take that game winner if you need them to. I mean, it gives the coaching staff a lot of options. So we're grateful for all of that. Their hard work. They're in the gym all the time, and they're focused on the possibilities ahead. So one day at a time, but it's a great group.
You got Clark ahead of you, 9-8 on the season, 0-2 in conference play so far. What's the message to the team about opponents like the Clarks when you've been already facing teams that are certainly at the top of Division III?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I think that, when you become ranked in the top 10 and now, now in the top 5, it's a different, everybody gets very excited to play you, and you're going to get everybody's
big target.
Yeah, big target. A lot of focus, and it's different, being the hunted versus being the hunter. Right. And so, I think that we've talked a lot about it as a team. We're willing to embrace it. We're going to own, our success, and we're going to defend it. And, ultimately it's the mindset that we go into each game with. I think it's a cultural mindset that hopefully will, continue to carry through, regardless of who we're playing. I mean, I think the one thing about having competitors is they really don't care who's on the other side of the ball. like they just want to play. They want to compete. They thrive for that moment. That's what they're excited for. So, clearly I expect our team to just be excited to be out with the privilege of being able to play again. And we'll be ready each game.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us and chat about the squad. The Pioneers are certainly having a tremendous season, but they've had a bunch of really good seasons over the last few years, and it's great to see the continued success. And I mean this seriously, especially at an all-women's college. I know that's not always the easiest thing to recruit into and get people excited about, so I'm really ecstatic to see that it's working for you.
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously we all applaud what you do for Division III basketball, women's basketball. I think that, all of us really enjoy this show and everything you do. You're sick and here you are, right? So you're just as crazy as all of us coaches, right? Dave, we appreciate you and, thanks for having me on.
Well, Coach, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Don't know if you want to finish up with any final words, but if not, you take care. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll look forward to connecting with you further down the road.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Lynn Hersey joining us here on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Really appreciate her taking the time to do so. I can't get my picture to pop up. There it is. Thanks for her time. By the way, toughest SOS as of right this moment in Division III, if our numbers are accurate. Also, someday I want to get her, Wellesley's head coach, and some others on to talk about those challenges of being all women's schools and getting students excited about not only that opportunity, but playing the sport at a school like a Smith. I think that'd be a fascinating conversation to hear, and to hear how they go about that. And for Smith's case, keeping that success up. We'll take a break. When we come back, Cameron Hill will join us from the #1 ranked women's basketball team at Trinity. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More after this.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
For the love of the game, but for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. So far, the voice is holding out, and we're going to hope that way for the next hour. Still ahead, we have 2 more coaches to talk to. We're about to talk to Cam Hill, head coach of the Trinity women's basketball team out of Texas, and we'll #1 ranked team in all the land. At least in our poll, we know which one's better. We'll also, sorry, that's not a knock to my friends at the WBCA. We'll also talk to Tom Palombo, head coach at Guilford, having a tremendous season there. And then we'll talk to our women's top 25 panelists on their thoughts on the poll. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops, or D3Sports.com. That's hoopsville at D3Sports.com. And we're simulcasting the show, Facebook.com and YouTube. Just look us up. Listening and watching from Albany, Georgia. Thank you, Blazer Bobcat. Appreciate it very much. Hope you're all enjoying the show as well. We'll take a turn now, talk Trinity, as I mentioned. They're having a tremendous season after having what I think was a bonkers great NCAA tournament that I actually was surprised they didn't get all the way to the NCAA to the Final Four only because of how they dispatched Christopher Newport. But that's how the tournaments act, right? That's how those things work out. We'll talk to maybe him a little about that a little bit here with Cam, if he allows. Joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, it is the aforementioned head coach. He is not with the coaching staff for the San Francisco Giants. Do not get that confused. But Cam Hill does join us here on Hoopsville. Coach, congratulations first and foremost on the #1 ranking. I know while you're there, it's never happened, and I think it's a very short window when Trinity has had that happen after a national title.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Dave. It's been it's definitely been a labor of love, and it's been a lot of fun. And this team is definitely special, and they're doing some pretty cool things right now.
I'll admit the one thing that always throws me off with you is when I see you off the court. Whether it's now, you're in a T-shirt and a baseball cap, and we can see the necklace and the bling. When you're on the court, you are a diaper dandy. Let's call you a dandy of a man. You're dressed up. You're looking great. It's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Is it just that you dress up so much like me, forget it all when you're off the court?
You know, we benefit from being in athletics. You know, this is nice clothes. These are nice clothes for coaching practice and working players all day long. So, but it's nice to show the team some respect with a tie and a start shirt when it's game time for sure.
Not to jump off on a tangent, but you kind of bring something up that I just hadn't thought of. COVID kind of brought along, a decrease in the amount of dressing up that I've seen in coaches, primarily on the men's side, because that's where you see the shirt and tie. I think on the women's side, it's not fair, but I don't notice it as much, and I could just be missing it. Where do you think that's come from? Is it everybody's just realized it's a more casual affair in general? Because your comment about respecting the team and dressing up, I've never heard that way of putting it.
That's kind of just how I feel about it. This is an ongoing debate in my family because my younger brother's with the Pelicans, and I like to make jokes that they look like backup dancers for the Temptations every time they coach a game. But, you know, for me, it's just an opportunity to take this situation seriously. A lot of days we try to keep it light and not overstress people or actually our players and things. But, you know, game day has been special in my family my whole life. So, you know, ironing your shirt and putting yourself together to go out there and do your job is a special thing for me. So I do appreciate those opportunities for sure.
Yeah, no, great. Appreciate that insight. Hey, you're #1. Plain and simple. You got the #1 ranking thanks to NYU stumbling last weekend and dropping 2. You're ahead of Transylvania. Yes, you're not #1 on the WBCA side, but you're #1, I think, and the one that I think most people notice. What's that mean to you? What does that mean to the program? What does that mean to the department and university?
Yeah, you know, I try real hard to keep things in perspective, especially when talking to the team. You know, most of the time we don't take rankings too seriously. We try not to get distracted with the number, you know, but this is different. It's definitely special, and it deserves appreciation, and it means a ton to me over the time that I've been here to get the public recognition for the work that we've done, and to be in that spot means a ton. And I know the girls are awfully proud. The biggest thing about that, Dave, is that, you know, it doesn't change one bit what we see when we look in the mirror. Like, we've seen ourselves this way the whole time, but I think it changes literally how every other person sees you. You know, now it's not just Trinity, but it's Trinity, the #1 team in the nation. So they have added incentive to give us the best shot that they possibly can. Because, I mean, how cool is it to beat the #1 team in the nation? It'd be awesome. So we have to shoulder that burden, and we have to look it in the eye, and we have to try as hard as we can to maintain our level of performance while we have this incredible recognition from you guys. So I definitely appreciate it.
Sorry, I clicked on the wrong link.
It happens.
This is what happens when you're not paying attention to what you're doing here. And there we go. We fixed it. Too much stuff in my head and maybe too many medications. When you talk about beating the number one, and to take a quick tangent off of your team, I don't remember the rankings last year, but Christopher Newport, I think, might have been top dog when you played them in the Sweet 16.
Yep.
I remember watching that game and being blown away, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a team was basically taking what they were doing and putting it back in their face. You were breaking that press better than I've seen anyone else do. You were attacking them and getting them back on their heels. You owned that game. You absolutely owned that game. Got a huge win. To follow up then, I was startled to then see a different team take on Amherst. Like, I saw that game against Christopher Newport and I thought, well, frick, Amherst has got no chance. And I'm not knocking. I'm just trying to understand what's the dynamics there of that game against Christopher Newport and that game against Amherst.
Yeah, I mean, it's a, first of all, it's a back-to-back. And, you know, Amherst has done such a good job for so long. They've earned the right to host 2 weekends in a row, you know, so you have your home crowd, all your people, you have your fans, you know, and it's a great environment. And I thought the first half, you know, we did everything that we had to do. In fact, I would say we put them in a position to have to completely abandon what they like to do. You know, it wasn't hold it till the end of the shot clock. It wasn't win 50-52. Like, he turned them loose and let them shoot and let them go. And I think if you ask those players, they probably had the most fun they've ever had playing the second half of that game, because they finally got to go hoop a little bit. And I mean, honestly, for me, like, I fan out when I watch good players play well. And I thought it was outstanding the way they performed in the third quarter, and they started making shots and they got momentum. And, you know, I thought we counterpunched as best as we could, but in the end, you know, it's a tall task to go and compete like we did with the number one team in the nation, and then follow that up with the host team, who's traditionally been incredible. And they have a winning culture, and those kids understand what it takes to win, and their coach understands what it takes to win. You know, for me, it was just an awesome environment to play in. It was an awesome game to coach in, and it was fantastic to watch our players compete at that level. You know, we broke through last year. We had never been that far, and it was an incredible experience that I think we're leveraging this year really well.
Oh, great insight. I appreciate the idea on that. And again, I know that one game doesn't automatically lead to the next. It was funny how in my head, I'm like, oh, sure. And the next day going, wait, what? And I know Amherst also can pull you in a very weird direction, but so can Christopher Newport. Yeah. How much is that weekend now building on with what you got now? It's 17-0, 8-0 in conference play. How much is that weekend, that experience, and let's be honest, the near Final Four opportunity that you had, driving the boat?
Yes, not at all, actually. You know, we talk about not having a rearview mirror in this program all the time. We just focus on what's in front of us, and that's a great experience. I think we're using it, but we don't talk about it. We just talk about right now Centenary and St. Thomas and the job that we have to do this weekend. And, you know, we've taken this week to digest the ranking, which is incredible, and to refocus on the work that we do in practice and film. And I think the girls are ready to get out there and play tomorrow. They're excited to compete. You know, those things are awesome. And it's great to be able to tell the story of what has happened in the past. But for me, my whole focus has always been out the front and what we have to do next. And, you know, I think that's why this team is as focused as they are this year. And they really do take it one game at a time. And it's pretty wild to watch them just really dig into whoever's next.
You're outscoring your opponents by 24 points a game. You have what I consider 6 players offensively that you have to watch out for. You have 2 who are definitely in double figures, 2 more who are essentially on the doorstep of double figures in scoring, and 2 more who are a shade under 9 a game. It starts with Ashlyn Milton. She's got 15 points a contest, 5 rebounds a game, shooting 50. 51% from the floor. Josie Napoli, which we got a question on. We'll get back to her. Addie is the other one, double figures. Putnam and Robbins are near double figures. Shipley and Hale are the ones just outside of that. And I know Shipley hasn't played the whole season. She's missed some games as well. Yep. Give me a sense, though, of that nucleus, that group, and everybody else, and how that is working, not only offensively, where you're putting up 86.5 points per game, but defensively, where you're only allowing 63.
Yeah, it's there's a continuity to the way that the locker room operates. You know, I mean, take me out of it. Those girls understand each other. They're incredibly supportive of one another, and they understand that basketball is a team sport. So even though Ashlyn scores a lot of points, there's been a lot of games where people have tried to face guard her, and I kind of chuckle because it's like you can take her out of the game if you want to, but you have a lot of other players that you have to manage on our team, and the way we move the ball and the way we space the floor makes it tough. Certainly not unbeatable. Somebody will crack the code, you know, you think, but right now the way that they blend their talent is pretty elite, and no one on our team cares who has to carry the heavy load night to night. You know, it's a shared experience, and they embrace that. And I think our bench has done a great job coming in and managing the minutes that they have to contribute to our winning streak. And, you know, at the end of the day, we have a good team. You know, you can talk about the individual players all you want, but those players are the ingredients that make up this incredible team. And that's what I think our superpower is.
To that point, the question we had from someone down there who wanted to hear from you was talk about Napoli's recent play. And you look at her line, she's got her fair share of double-digit games, but the last two, 23 points, 24 points against Texas Lutheran and Southwestern, 15 of 29 from the floor, 9 of 18 from beyond the arc, 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Give me a sense of what's worked for her so well, and why is it her right now? I guess you've kind of answered this, and not someone else.
Yeah, I just think that, you know, it's interesting for her. You know, she was a great player last year at Pacific Lutheran, and she had the ball a lot, and she got to make a lot of decisions. And then she plugs herself into our system, and it took her a little while. It took everybody a little while to kind of get to where they understand and trust the instinctive plays that all of our players make. And right now, like, we're trending in a way where everyone really understands one another now. So when Josie drives the ball, we're spacing in the right places. She's finding open teammates. You force closeouts to those people. She relocates outside the three-point line. Now she's open. She's catching inside out three. She's shooting the ball with a lot of confidence. But at the end of the day, the reason she's been successful with our team is because she's an elite decision maker. I mean, she's a brilliant basketball player, and she always finds a teammate and gives that person an opportunity to do something positive. So, you know, she's one of 17 that we have in our program that are very special, but she certainly has played well of late, and that's fun to see because she's worked really hard, and I have tons of respect for that.
Let me pivot a little bit towards your schedule. Obviously, with a big target on your back and the success you had last season and even previous seasons, it is tough to schedule. You're also located in a state called Texas, as according to my notes. And there isn't a lot of teams around you. We started the show with more news out of Texas about how the ASC is now a little bit under pressure with possibly more losses there. Your SOS ain't bad if these numbers are accurate. At 56.07, I believe, you're 112th in the country. So it's not a horrible spot. But you have 2 games against Hardin-Simmons that were, interestingly enough, back-to-back. You've got multiple games against other ASCs. How difficult have you found it to schedule? And by the way, this compares to Smith, who we just talked to, who's number 1, who has a very different conference schedule as well. But how tough have you found it to schedule? And have you guys been limited in getting to go elsewhere? Like, have you tried to go and find other games elsewhere or bring other people in? Because I know you've had some success in the past.
Yeah, no, traveling is awesome. And we love to get out on the road and go challenge ourselves with great games. You know, every school handled COVID differently. And for us, you know, we don't have the travel budget that we've had in the past, which adds another layer of just interesting things to how you go and try to, you know, create a good strength of schedule in your non-conference. I'm not going to say anything bad about our conference. Our conference is what it is. Everybody's trying really hard, but our conference hurts our strength of schedule. So if we're not able to go and get, 2 or 3, 4 top 25 games in our non-conference, it's really hard for us. So we were lucky this year that Kendra was willing to do a home and home, and we're always able to get Mark to play with UMHB. And then Casey's a great friend of mine at Puget, and we try to help each other as often as we can. And they're having a heck of a season, so they came down, and we'll try to repay that trip next year. But, I think everybody kind of learns that they have a circle of people that they can count on in scheduling. And when those people also have good teams, it makes a huge difference. And, when we get our budget kind of reestablished to a point where we can hop on some planes and get out there and go, we really don't have a problem playing away from home. I'll go anywhere to play anybody if it's the right thing for the team and it makes sense for our schedule. But yeah, I think this year's worked out perfectly. I'm awfully proud of the job that Hardin Simmons has done with their season. They've played great. They're a really good team. UMHB is always really good. And like I said, Puget's having a great year, and you fill in the rest of it with games that fit what you can afford to do. And right now that's kind of where we're at. But, all of that stuff notwithstanding, the regional rankings are certainly important, but your strength of schedule is not always something that you can control. So you have to just win the games that you play. And that's what we try to do. We just want to win the next game. And, that's our focus going into tomorrow.
No, I appreciate that. It's interesting insight to hear that the budget got a little tighter on those things. Those are the things that a lot of us on the outside can't fully appreciate. So thanks for the knowledge. By the way, shameless plug, there's this wonderful event in Las Vegas called the D3Hoops.com Classic. Love to have you there. Maybe bring the men along, make it a big event. I'm just saying, just a thought.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that.
We get some good teams. Hey, maybe you and Amherst rematch?
Whatever, man. Let's do it.
I love you. Hey, quickly, what's ahead? You got Centenary and St. Thomas this weekend. St. Thomas in the years past has been tough. I know they're kind of still evolving into Division III. The men's team's obviously bonkers good right now. Then you're on the road, Schreiner and Colorado College, kind of a tough run there before finishing up actually with 4 home games. So 6 of your next 8 will actually be at home, which is key. But what's the most important part, and what should we expect?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you in terms of expectation. I know we're going to play hard, we're going to prepare hard, and we're going to do the best that we can. It's awesome. You never know how the conference schedule is going to shake out. It's really nice to have this little runway at the end where we get to be at home, and then we're actually the host institution for the SCAC tournament this year.
Oh, right. That's decided ahead of time.
Yeah, so that's cool. And one of the things that I think we all kind of deal with this in Division III in all basketball, but we play a lot of games over breaks where the fans aren't around to come and support the team. So it'll be really fun to have our student body on campus for a couple home games and to get some energy in the gymnasium and let people appreciate the job these girls have done this year. But yeah, man, at the end of the day, whatever the schedule is, it is. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but we truly just focus on one game at a time, and we're going to do our best to play well tomorrow. And then we'll watch the film, and we'll do our best to play well Saturday, and then we'll recalibrate and get ready for Schreiner and Colorado, who are both very good teams with very capable players. So it's really exciting to think about what we have ahead of us, and it's exciting to think of, just the opportunity we have to continue to do this, because this is really fun.
Just watch out, Schreiner, Southwestern. I hear sometimes things get a little physical. Punches might get thrown. Just watch out.
Yeah, we took a Taibo class last week, so I feel like we're good.
Well played, sir. Hey, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it. I wish I could talk to you more, but we like to jam way too many guests into a program, and we're going to get going. But you take care. We always give the coach, guest, whatever, the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those tuned in?
I just always like to tell you how much we appreciate the platform you create for our level and for our student athletes. I know all the coaches appreciate you, and I'm certainly one of those. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, and I wish you the best. I hope you feel better, my friend.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. I kid you not. That is a big part of our ability to do this show well, and it means a lot to me. Again, we're going to have to talk about the headwear. A lot of expectations, but, I know another one sitting there. I know.
She's ready. She's ready.
I know it's a labor of love, but, man, that's got to hurt too.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You just keep cheering for the Cubs.
Yeah, well, that hurts too. Hey, sir, take care of yourself. We'll talk soon.
Be good, Dave.
Thank you. Cameron Hill joined us on Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Really fun chatting with him. Great to see him in person 7 years ago. Wish I could get down in San Antonio a little more often. We'll take a break. When we come back, switch gears. Tom Palombo of Guilford will join us. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More with the show after this.
These are your teams, your players, your community of fans. This is where they play, where they practice, where you cheer. At every meet, every event, every game. Your community is passionate, dedicated, supportive. You know the tension of a close game and the thrill of the win. So while you're cheering, keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
Wrong thing was set up there. You got to see Tom and I just kind of chilling for a second. Welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Voice is holding up. I'll take that for the win right now. Hope you are holding up well as well. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville at D3sports.com. You can join us where we're simulcasting the show, facebook.com/Hoopsville or youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. Appreciate so far all our guests. Coming up, we still have Riley Zayas and Scott Peterson. We'll talk about the women's top 25 from their perspective. Switching gears back to men for a bit, the ODAC race is fascinating to watch, as we expected. Randolph-Macon, not surprisingly, still darn good. But behind them, there's a lot of good teams, including the Guilford Quakers, who are probably the best team to keep the Macon Yellow Jackets honest, though I'm sure a rematch with them was going to be one to watch. Coming off a big win over Roanoke, Guilford is clicking along, and so joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline is their head coach, Tom Palombo. Joins us via Zoom. And sir, appreciate the time to join us. First and foremost, congratulations, because this is an outstanding season for you guys, building on what you were kind of starting to put together last year.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you toughing it out tonight too.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm babying it. Who knows? Hey, sorry, I hit the wrong button. So, huge season this year. I think it's funny because last year, really good year, just got left on the outside looking in at the NCAA tournament due to some, I think the SOS number or something. I can't remember all the details. And I remember looking at what you had coming back going, you know what, they could be pretty good. And watching, I'm like, yeah, they're there. Then I got some texts from those who had seen you going, oh, this team's really good. They could make a deep NCAA tournament run. Hey, watch out for this. Watch out. This is what they do well, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the attention's building, and people are starting to notice you guys. What are you doing so well that's getting so much attention?
Well, I think first of all, it's a little too early to be talking about. I think we're just trying to get this time of year. You're in the grind of the middle of your conference schedule. We're about halfway through, I think, with our game last night. So, we're just trying to we're trying to in this league. You're trying to make it from Wednesday to Sunday and just survive. So, we've defended really well. We've played some really good team defense. We have some great individual defenders, and we have some great team defenders. We've rebounded it okay. I don't think we've rebounded it to the level that we need to, or that hopefully we're going to. And then offensively, I think we can continue to improve. I don't think we've scratched the surface of where we can be, and we need to get better. We have not been great offensively, and I think we can get there because we have some really good offensive players.
Okay, so that's interesting. A lot of people would say you're playing pretty well offensively. I understand a coach never thinks it's as at the zenith that it could be. What do you think needs to improve on the offensive end? You beat a pretty good Roanoke squad at home, and you had a pretty good game, if memory serves, against Macon already.
Yeah, and both those games were very physical, really low scoring games. I think our Macon game was in the 50s, and then last night Roanoke was both teams basically in the 50s again. But both those teams are so good defensively, and their schemes are very good, very solid, very fundamental. It's really hard to score against teams like that, and we think we're hard to score on too. But it's just been where I think when you find some holes and you find some opportunities during a game to cash in on opportunities, I think we can do that better than we have to this point. I think we have some really good perimeter shooters. We have some good inside play, and I think once we as we continue to move along, get more familiar with each other. I think we do that every day. I think we grow every day, but it's a work in progress. It's middle of January, and we're trying to make it to Wednesday, and then get ready to try to make it to Saturday.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. Your losses earlier this season, one to La Crosse 74-68, certainly doesn't look bad, and one to North Carolina Wesleyan 52-50. I know Ryan Scott brought that game up when he was talking about the top 25 and how good the Battling Bishops are likely this season. And then you had the Randolph-Macon game, as you mentioned, just over, about 2 weeks ago, 59-56. What is it about those games, besides maybe being defensive battles, as you mentioned in the Macon game and maybe in the Battling Bishops game? What is it about those games, though, that you're using to build upon to improve things or learn from?
Yeah, I think just like all teams, we look at the video, with our guys, and obviously as our staff, we look at it and just try to help them, try to put them in positions to be successful, try to help them against the opponent you're getting ready to face. And it's not in really changing what you're doing. I think it's just trying to help your players and put them in spots where they're comfortable and where they can be successful and where they can help their teammates be successful. So, and I think that's why you practice, it's why we practice, but it's also the watching of the film and knowing your opponent and how they're going to play you, and just trying to help your guys and give them some things that they can do in practice, and hopefully can get done in the games to help them be successful, both offensively and defensively.
Interestingly enough, you're kind of in a stretch here of interest, and we'll talk more about the conference here because it's obviously gotten a little bit bigger too. So I want to get your intake on that as well. But you started January with a game against a really good Washington and Lee team, and got them by 20 at your place. On the road against Macon, tough place to play, lost by 3. Then Lynchburg and Averett, I'm not knocking them, but kind of a little bit of a lull before now there's ramp here. You got Roanoke, Virginia Wesleyan, Hampton-Sydney, even Eastern Mennonite. Roanoke at home, but Virginia Wesleyan and Hampton-Sydney will have to be on the road, and Eastern Mennonite finally back home. This is kind of a challenging stretch of ODAC play.
Yeah, I think the worst thing you can do in our league is to look down the road at what's facing you. I think that is not what you want to do, and we've done a really good job, I think, as our program and our players, of just flushing whatever happened the day before or the game before, whether it was a win or a loss. You flush it out and you move on to the next one. And you don't look any further than that. You don't look behind, and you try to learn from what you just did and try to get better from it. But I think you just, for us, it's just, moving on to Virginia Wesleyan. Actually, I thought that's why you had me on the show, because that's that's the site of the greatest Division III game ever played, right? Guilford, Lincoln, triple overtime, Ben Strong, 59 points. I mean, you can't beat that. I know you were there.
Oh, I was, and my voice might have sounded like this at the end of it, believe it or not. And no, I had that in the back of my mind when I saw the matchup. I thought, first, you just got done with Roanoke. I love Clay's program, but geez, Virginia Wesleyan's coming up. For a moment, let's go down nostalgia lane. Bonkers, sir. Bonkers game at Valwez. And of course, a really good game the next night. Against Virginia Wesleyan in the Elite Eight. What's really amazing was your triple overtime game was the game that no one was really paying attention to. Everyone was waiting for the top 10 matchup following that turned into a dud of a game. But I don't remember how long ago that 59 points for Ben Strong was. But what are your memories of that? And do you think of it every time you walk into that place?
I don't know about that. I mean, it comes up from time to time. I think you more think about what we had to go through to play the next day. I mean, playing a triple overtime Sweet 16 game, just the physical toll and the way, and as physical as that game was, to go 3 overtimes, and then you got to turn around and play Virginia Wesleyan, who, they're playing at home and they're unbelievably good. And, we hung in till the end. We just didn't have enough left for those guys, but they were so good. Even fresh, that was going to be tough, but coming off a triple overtime 2.5-hour basketball game was pretty difficult.
Actually, I can't remember. Was that the year Virginia Wesleyan? No, that was the year they were defending champs, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they went to, obviously they went to the Final Four because they beat us, but I think they lost to Wash U that year in the semis, if I'm not mistaken.
Hitting the wrong button. They got to the title game and lost in the title game.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Great memories, sir, to say the least. Obviously, Virginia Wesleyan ahead, though. Macito's team maybe not as great as those teams were, but he's got a tough team, and at home they are really tough to play. What are you guys expecting?
Yeah, they're really good. They're gonna come out and they're gonna come after you full court man to man, and they're very athletic. They play very fast. In transition, we're gonna have to, we're really gonna have to make sure we're on point with what we're doing, and you got to find ways to score against those guys because they defend at a high level, and they always have, and they always will, and they hang their hat on it, and it's just really, it's really hard to score on those guys. I mean, just like it was last night in Roanoke, really hard to score on those guys. In our league, there's so many good defensive teams, and it's just, it's really tough. You've got to, it's not a fist fight, but it's a fight. It's tough. It's really tough. You got to be prepared for the physicality of it. And you can't get down if you go into a rut of 4 or 5 minutes. You just got to be able to hang in there.
Not that you're looking that far ahead, because we've learned on the show you look at it one game at a time. But after that is Hampden-Sydney. They're the ones who are technically ahead of you, 8-1 in conference play due to the 8 wins. Virginia Wesleyan's in that group. That's 2.5 behind you at 5-4. And that Hampden-Sydney program has turned around and is part of the reason that this ODAC has gotten so much tougher than it already was. Add in the fact you now also have Averett in the conference, so the schedule is even more demanding. Give us a sense of what it's like to play in the ODAC this season.
Yeah, you rattled it off with all the teams at the top, and it's like I've always said, and there've been some down years, but for the most part, you say the teams that are at the bottom are at the bottom. Well, they're really not bottom teams. It's just the teams at the top are so good. The teams at the bottom are pretty good too. There's a lot of teams in our league that are going to finish, 8th and 9th, that in different leagues, they could be right at the top for sure. And in a different year, maybe in our league, they could be at the top. It's just, this is shaping up as to kind of one of those years where there's so many good teams. And it's really going to be difficult as you move down the stretch here.
Does it change the motivation that Randolph-Macon is the defending champs, won the championship last year? Does it change a team's mentality of what can be done in this conference?
Yeah, I think what Dave's done at Virginia Wesleyan and winning a national championship and going to Final Four, and then, Josh's team last year, just unbelievable season. And then to come back and back it up again this year, I think we've always kind of felt like if you can survive the ODAC, in other words, either win the ODAC or get to the NCAA tournament through our league, that you have a shot. Like, it's not like you're just going in there and you're going to you're happy to be there kind of thing. You feel like if you're good enough to make it out of our league, you're good enough to, you're good enough to do some things in the tournament. We've always felt like that. And I think that's a lot due to first what Dave did at Virginia Wesleyan, and now what Josh is doing at Randolph-Macon. You feel like, man, you compete with those guys and you got a chance at this thing. So, and, we got to go to back-to-back Final Four. So, we kind of, we felt that a little bit too from our perspective, but it's tough. It's just really hard in our league, and everybody knows it.
Not to knock on the conference tournament. I know everyone has pride in that. It's a great event. It's at the Salem Civic Center. It's fun to be at. I've been to it. It's a wonderful thing. But especially when you get the 3 games back to back to back to finish the weekend and get into the tournament, I've always had this sense that it could be a detriment. I'm not sure if it is, but it could be a detriment because you have a very tired program going into the NCAAs with a couple of days to rest, recuperate, prepare, and execute for that first weekend of the tournament. I don't know. I'm not asking for solutions, but has there ever been a discussion of maybe we've bitten off too much here and we need to find a better way to prepare our teams for March?
No, I think in alternate years, it's a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and then sometimes it's Friday, Saturday. Right. I think the coaches would tell you that, man, if you can battle through 3 days of playing at that level, back to back to back with short turnarounds, when you get to the NCAA tournament and then you're playing that first game and then you got to turn around and play again, and you've done more than that because you've done that twice. And I think I think all of our kids, I build that certainly as a positive. And that you've done something that's really hard to do, and now you're about to try to do something that's also really hard. But you've done it and you've been there, and I think it's helpful. I really think it's helpful to our programs and to us.
No, I appreciate that. That's kind of why I was asking. I wanted to know, is it a positive or can it be something that hurts you? But I'm great to hear that you guys think you can build from that and teach them. And I agree with that with some conference schedules when they've gone away from the weekend stuff. They're like, it's too challenging. And I'm like, well, you're never going to survive March. So it's great to hear that. Quickly about your team. I pushed it off too far here. Tyler Dearman, Jordan Davis, Miles Washington leading the team in double scorings, 15 plus, 12 points and 10 points respectively. All pretty much shoot the ball well from the floor, especially from beyond the arc, though Washington doesn't take as many shots. And you've got a lot of other contributors. Can you just give us a sense of who these guys are, what makes them click, and what makes them so dangerous?
Sure. Tyler, Julius, and Jordan have been with us, for 4 years. Jordan with the COVID year for 5 years. And, those guys are they run the team. They know the atmosphere we're trying to create. They know what it takes to compete at the highest level against these teams. And I can't say enough about, specifically those 3 guys to what they've done and what they continue to do for our team. But we've been able to blend the returns we had from last year with some guys that have come in and really been great for our program. Miles being one, Rob Littlejohn. We've just had some really good guys come in and be able to, adapt to what we're trying to do, sacrifice for the team. And that's been really good for us to do. Elijah Bowens is another guy who came in, for his first year here. And, it's been special. I really like these guys. I really like coming to practice, and, they're fun to be around. They work hard. And when it comes time to play games, they're down to business, ready to go.
I know you just won your 600th career game, not all at Guilford. Did that take place with Herbie Davis in attendance? Was that game against Lynchburg?
Yeah, that was the Lynchburg game. Yeah, it was the Lynchburg game. I think my daughter was the only one who knew that it was the 600th win. It's not like we're sitting around thinking about it. So she alerted me before the season started, and I think she emailed our people at Guilford so they knew. It's just one of those things, man. We're just trying to go 1-0 on the day. That's what we talk about. We're just trying to win one game, man, and just trying to move it on to the next one.
I just figured maybe Herbie was in attendance, the UNC head coach.
Hubert. Yeah, Hubert was there. Hubert was there. Yeah, he was there because his son plays for Lynchburg, so he was there, and I don't think people distracted him too much during the game. I think after the game, everybody wanted to get pictures with him and everything. It's a pretty big deal to have that guy, have that guy in the building.
I just figured, along with his son, he was there to congratulate you. I just was what I figured.
Yeah, right.
That's what it was. He just came down the road to say hi.
That's right.
Tom, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I left you a little bit late because we're running behind, but thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on a great season. People who've talked to me speak real high about your team this season and what it could do, and I'm glad to get you on to talk about it. By the way, we should point out you finish the regular season with a game against Randolph-Macon at home. I think everyone's got that circled. I know I do. Looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But in the meantime, we always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, I want to thank you for all you do for Division III basketball. But so my final word, I know you've got the women's basketball panel coming up, and I want to get the Guilford College women's basketball team on the radar here. 14-3, won 8 in a row. Lindsey Godden, perennial player of the year in the ODAC. Give them a little consideration here for the rankings. I want to put that plug in when you get that panel on there.
Hey, sir, well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Deep dive from Tom Palombo. Love it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, sir. You take care of yourself. Thanks for the time, and we'll try not to remember the triple overtime game too much more often.
I hear you, man. Hope you feel better.
See you. Thank you. Tom Palombo joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Really appreciate him taking the time. That was fun. Yeah, that triple overtime game, folks, I will never forget it. Calling that game, 59 points for Ben Strong, another great guy, who, by the way, I saw at the Final Four last year. He was in the same hotel as us, getting there to play a G League game. Take a break. When we come back, the aforementioned women's panel will join us. You guys, make sure to join us again. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
These are your teams, your players, your community of fans. This is where they play, where they practice, where you cheer. At every meet, every event, every game. Your community is passionate, dedicated, supportive. You know the tension of a close game and the thrill of the win. So while you're cheering, keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
It starts right when you hit the court. You imagine your finest moment. The game-winning shot that gets you to the dance. A monster dunk or no-look pass, and cutting down the net. Sports lets us dream of our own success and prepare us for our finest moments on and off the court.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us. It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us. All of us.
To stop sexual assault. Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're rolling along nicely as long as we are. I'm amazed my voice is holding out. I know it doesn't sound normal, and it's a little bit of pressure, and I've been drinking a ton of hot liquids, but it's working, and I'm thankful for that. I'm glad we didn't postpone today's show. It's been great, and I want to appreciate our guests. We'll thank them at the finale of the show as well, including a couple other shout-outs. Now time to pivot on the women's side of things. You heard Tom Palombo push for the Guilford Quakers. There would be some who say there's some problems and flaws with their resume. Maybe we'll dive in on that. But joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline to discuss it with us and to have some fun with it. We go to the double take, and it is Scott Peterson. If you're looking at your screen in your upper left and Riley Zayas in your upper right, talking to us about the women's top 25. Gentlemen, thanks for taking the time to join us. Good to see you. Hope you're well.
Yeah, good to be on, Dave.
Yeah, thank you for having us on, Dave. We're always glad to talk some D3 women's hoops.
Good point, sir. It's always fun to talk, and I really appreciate the time you guys give us to do this. Let's just get a quick take, because we haven't talked to you guys in quite some time. I want to get a quick take on what you guys think of what I think's been a little bit more of a bumpy women's season. Yes, we have some undefeateds, but the ones we always kind of lean on aren't having the seasons we're kind of used to, right, Scott?
I would agree with that. And I think it's really entertaining to see, because I wouldn't say that having fewer undefeateds means that the quality of play or the quality of the teams is any less. I think we're seeing some different scheduling habits and maybe a stronger kind of middle of the entire landscape, but especially Whitewater just scheduling seems like everybody that they can find who might be a top 50 team across the entire nation. You're going to automatically create a lack of undefeated teams because they've got to play Whitewater a lot, or Whitewater has to play them a lot. And that's not the only case of something like that happening. You're seeing Trine traveling and Warburg traveling and CCIW teams traveling. And I think it's pretty sweet to see a lot of geographical region mixing and knocking down that number of undefeateds.
Great point. And as Smith points out, even them going out there schedule as many good teams as they possibly can. Riley, your take on things so far?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Scott said, I've been super impressed by how competitive teams have been. And I do think that seeing a lot of teams scheduling tough competition early on back in November and December is helping them now. And the other thing I've really liked is how many teams that entered the year in November as very, very young squads. You know, Mary Hardin Baylor, 8 of their 13 main rotational players are in their first year in the program. Wisconsin Oshkosh, you know, has probably the youngest team they've had under Brad Fisher, their head coach. And those teams in November look a lot different than they do now in January. And you know, there's been some bumps in the road, but they have fought through those. And it's great to see that development and maturity, you know, kind of coming about for some of those teams that we weren't quite sure about, you know, back in November. So we've learned a lot since the last time we were here on Hoopsville.
Good point. We have learned a lot. And speaking of, we should get right into it. Real quick, Tom Palombo wanted to bring up his Quakers women's basketball program as a top 25 team. Your guys' thoughts? Anybody voting for him?
I don't think so. There's the strength of schedule is just too low, and there's not really a good, what I would deem a good win on the schedule. The best teams that they've played, they've taken a loss to them. That said, I do think they have a shot to be regionally ranked coming up, but those upcoming games against Bridgewater, Randolph College, Randolph-Macon, and there was one more that's escaping, Washington Lee. Those are going to be their big barometers, and if they can get 2 of those, I think they could see some really nice regional recognition.
No, I agree with you. Riley, any thoughts, or you just want to move on to the next?
Yeah, they're on a roll right now. I mean, they put some wins together, but similar to what Scott said, I always like to see when teams have the chance to play other quality opponents, and really we haven't quite seen that from Guilford, you know, in the perhaps maybe the way we would like them to, and at this point too, there's just so many teams in contention right now for the top 35. I mean, there's so many teams when you look at that others receiving votes category right now. So they're definitely a tough spot right now, but I think they're playing good basketball. There's a lot of teams right now that are playing good basketball, putting together wins, and frankly, just maybe the strength of schedule right now isn't there for a lot of voters. That's kind of where I'm at right now as a voter.
Makes sense. Hey, let's go into it. Let's start with a deep dive, since, you know, Guilford's a bit of a deep dive. Let's go deep dive. Riley, we'll start with yours. Who's your deep dive team?
Yeah, and as a voter, those who follow the blog that I run, I had 5 teams in my ballot this past week, which is quite a few who didn't get into the top 25. So I could go pretty much anywhere with this, but UW Stout is the team I'm gonna take. The Blue Devils 13-5, 5-2 WIAC record. I think there may be a team that you could overlook a little bit, but you look down their schedule. You know, they've beaten Oshkosh, Stevens Point, Platteville looks like a pretty good win after their win over Whitewater this past week, and then obviously Stout beat Whitewater last Saturday in a really, really big win. You know, moving ahead to the rest of the season, they'll have 4 of their final 7 at home, which I really, really like. They'll get to play Eau Claire again at home. You know, last night again we chose these picks before last night's games, but at halftime of last night's game against Eau Claire, at Eau Claire, you know, it was 36-31 at half. And Stout's just one of those teams. They're competitive. They're tough. They got Reagan Sorensen leading the team with 14.2 points per game. They got a total of 3, averaging double figures in scoring right now. Again, they're young. I think they're a deep team. So, you know, kind of where I like Stout right now is they've played quality competition. They've gotten to play, you know, WashU and Ripon and Gustavus Adolphus. You know, their 5 losses are all the very good teams right now. And so that's kind of where I'm at with them. They're 9th in Massey SOS. And I think, you know, for quite a while, we've seen them hanging around a little bit higher than maybe we'd expect in Massey's ratings. Scott's had them quite high at times as well in his model. So at this point, I think Stout is just as much in the WIAC fight as A1. That WIAC is tough top to bottom. But you look at the standings right now, they're second, right behind Eau Claire. So very much in the fight for that WIAC title.
Scott, any thoughts?
So I don't have the same historical breadth of knowledge as someone like you, Dave, or Gordon, or others, but it does seem like there are fewer undefeated women's teams this year. And I think that, you know, that's due to a stronger middle class. It's harder to beat teams night in and night out. And if that's the case, it might mean that voters are penalizing losses heavier than they should, right? If you're losing to strong teams, and in past years there was less purity, so you really needed to have 1 or 2 wins by the time the season ended to be in that top 10, 15, 20, it might not be the case right now. And Stout has beat a ton of really good teams. And I love how Bob Quillman puts out his philosophy of voting, right? Because every voter can have their own philosophy. It's not dictated by somebody, the way that NCAA selection is fairly well defined and dictated. So it's cool when someone's very clear about their philosophy. And part of my philosophy is, can you beat good teams? Like, do you have that upside? And I'll be more willing to forgive a loss, especially if it's to a good team. And I think by and large, Stout has lost to good teams, and their body of wins is very impressive to me. So they're a team I really wouldn't want to face, because they could take me down.
No, I think you have a point. I think on the women's side, losses have always been a little bit more heavily impacted, or a voter takes them a little bit harder, because we're so used to how many teams can go through a season with hardly ever losing. But we've said for a few years now that the parity side that we talk on men is arriving on the women's side, though, John, to jump off on a tangent, we are seeing some less women playing in the high school ranks. That's something we'll talk about down the road. So who knows how long this lasts. But no, the middle is better, and the second tier is better. And I think maybe voters do need to adjust. I can't say for sure, but I buy that argument that maybe losses are still weighted too heavily, and that sometimes you just have to understand even good teams take a loss. And that's certainly something I consider when I vote on the men's side, is that, you know, teams can take a loss. It just depends on who that loss is to and other circumstances. I'll dive in harder. So good take. Your deep dive, Scott?
We're going to go out west and talk about Laverne. They're a team kind of similar to UC Santa Cruz last year that doesn't have a whole lot of D3 results to take a look at. But
yeah, that's an interesting convo for them, right?
For sure. But they have some quality wins. They beat Illinois Wesleyan, they beat Redlands, they beat Claremont Mudd Scripps, they beat Pomona Pitzer on the road. And even though I think I'm looking at 10 Division III results at the moment, they are undefeated. The strength of the schedule is a little bit lacking, but the fact that they've got a couple wins against teams that might be regionally ranked, I think kind of bumps them up a little bit in my eye. it's still a little uncomfortable to push them into, well, I think they're a top 25 team. I don't know if I would go that far, but I think they're a very interesting deep dive. They're playing really late if you're on the East Coast. It's easy to kind of miss those results and overlook them.
No, good call on Laverne. They actually popped on my radar a little bit, so I dove in on their 7 non-D3 games a little bit, as the guys could tell you. Riley, any follow-up thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, as Scott and I, we keep in touch pretty closely throughout the weeks, and one thing that we've been talking about quite often is Region 10 and just how, much we're seeing a lot of these teams towards the bottom of where we would possibly see the regionally ranked teams just kind of fighting it out there in those 6, 7, 8 spots. And Laverne is certainly on my radar. I've gotten to see them a few times. I like watching the West Coast teams play. I think sometimes they tend to get overlooked just because of their geography, but they definitely need more attention. I've liked what I've seen from Laverne. Probably not enough for me to put him in my ballot, but at this point in time, I have to agree with Scott. I mean, they're a good deep dive. They definitely should be on your radar if you're kind of looking at across the country who are the teams that are really putting together good results right now and playing well.
Appreciate the insight, gents. Good choices on the deep dive. Let's jump over to Dubious. Let's just go flip it for one for the other. This is a team that you guys think maybe is being voted too highly. Maybe they should be a top 25 team. Maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. We'll hear for these guys. But a Dubious is one they think is floated too high. Scott, we'll start with you.
Yeah, my Dubious is Messiah, who arrived in the top 25 this week at 24th. I think they're a team that has a fairly strong profile that historically voters really like. They're 15-2. They've only got 2 losses. And if you say, hey, what are those 2 losses? It's a road loss to Rochester and a road loss to DeSales. Both losses that you can say, hey, those are really strong teams. Road games are hard, and they won everything else. But I think there's a lot of games that most of your top 50 teams in the nation are just going to run through like a hot knife through butter. And if we're looking at the NCAA strength of schedule, 543, kind of that's the combination of your opponents and opponents winning percentage. It's middle of the road for sure. Massey kind of says the same thing, 152nd out of the 430 odd teams. And it just doesn't, if you look at the underlying stats as well, playing a weaker schedule, the point differential, rebound differential, and turnover differential, I look at those differentials a little bit above some of the other ones. They're not as strong as the other top teams that have also played weak schedules. Like we're going to talk about DeSales later, who's played a weak schedule, but those underlying stats are off the charts. Really, really, really good. And Messiahs are fairly underwhelming for the type of teams that they have largely beat. They definitely have impressive wins. Johns Hopkins, Gettysburg, those are impressive, but I'm not sure they would be a top 25 team for me, probably in that batch receiving a handful of votes.
Riley, your take?
Yeah, I'll be talking about another team with a similar kind of resume and position here in a second. But yeah, I think one of the things that as a voter I've been looking a lot at is who teams have played and have they done well in their biggest games? Have they done well and have they put good performances on the floor when they played those quality teams? Because yeah, you can put high stats on playing subpar opponents. And for me, I just watching Messiah play, I think they're definitely in the national conversation. I think they should definitely be considered as a top 25 team. But with the group of teams we have competing for those last 2 or 3 spots right now in the poll, I can think of at least 5 or 6 teams that have played better teams, have beaten better teams, and ultimately, going back to Scott's stats, when you weigh those against the competition, the SOS that these 5 or 6 other teams have played, they're in the top of the receiving votes category. I think they're almost always going to be ahead of Messiah when you look at it from that kind of a perspective.
So who's yours?
Mine's going to be Washington Jefferson, who came into the top 25 this week at number 25. And similar to Scott, I mean, you look up and down their resume, they're 16-1, 12-0. impact play. But, they really only have one quality win. That's to Carnegie Mellon. They did win on the road. Carnegie Mellon, number 63 by Massey right now. And Massey isn't everything. I want to make that clear just here right off the bat. But I think Massey does a very good job of weighing road wins versus home wins, neutral court wins. And it's a good way to kind of analyze and look at teams. And without another quality win, for me right now as a voter, looking at a team like Millikan or Gustavus Adolphus or Emory, any one of those, even a few of the WIAC schools, it's hard for me to see W&J ahead of those schools just purely based on the weak schedule that they've played. They're 224th in Massey SOS, which is not good. There's a lot of teams that have a .501 NCAA SOS. I think they're going to get into the NCAA tournament relatively easily through the Pool A. Again, another team in the national conversation, but not one that I would be voting for right now because we haven't seen them play enough top quality teams. And so I think sometimes when you get into this position, it's good to have so many teams in competition for those final few spots in the poll. But you also sometimes have teams like this where it seems like voters may be looking more at the record than the wins that they have and the teams that they have played.
Scott, any follow-up?
Yeah, the way that I've termed or kind of labeled teams with a weak SOS is it's hard for us to gain certainty. It's not that we know they're not good. It's just that we don't know how good they are, right?
Absolutely.
Washington and Jefferson could play an incredibly difficult schedule and have the exact same record, but we don't know because they haven't. And so, it could be they play a handful of teams in the Calvin, Puget Sound, Millikan range, and they lose all of them or they win all of them. We don't know at this point. And so we don't have certainty over where they are. And I would rather put a team in the top 25 poll that we have a little more certainty over.
Understandable. Great take, guys. Really appreciate it. Interesting. It's funny because those two selections are teams I wasn't surprised made the top 25, but I think you guys make some interesting observations there. Debatable. Team that should they not be? Where should they vote? Et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of a free for all. It gives us a wild card, as it were. Scott, we'll start with you right? Because I think I had Rod. Yeah, Scott, we'll go with you. Debatable. What's your choice?
I think it's funny that. Well, you were a little surprised that we talked about those two teams for dubious, but as we were looking at the top 25, it was really hard to find a team higher ranked than those that were, that felt really dubious to us.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's in the women's side, it's harder that way. Yeah, absolutely agree with you.
So we think the voters are doing a really, really smart and good job, regardless of the philosophy that they're taking. There's a whole batch of teams up there that I think most people would agree on. But on deep dive, or debatable, I'm debating Ithaca. I really don't know where I would go with them. They're currently 20th in the D3 Hoops poll, I believe. And so a few of the things that I look at is, how have you beat teams this year? They're a little bit lower. So I have a model that I've labeled current season results because it's really just looking at who you've beat. It rewards really good wins, but it doesn't take into account eye test, injuries, other things like that are a little more subjective. But they're 30th, which is not really that far off from 20th. So I might think that there should be a little bit lower in the poll, but they're a strong team. They've got a strong winning percentage. The strength of schedule is there. They have some impressive wins. But I think as a whole, I really love rewarding a whole batch of strong wins and not kind of having easy wins on your slate. And Ithaca's some strong, some weak there. So I probably would shade them a little bit lower, but they're a really fascinating team to me. They could be a top 10 team. They could be team 35. I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
I agree. I think Ithaca's all over. Riley?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same. I think one thing about Ithaca and one thing that I kind of saw as a voter, they took a really, really long break between early December to early January when they came back and played. Sometimes that can't be avoided, but I think they went off of a lot of voters' radars at that point. They've obviously come back on. Their record is good. They beat Cortland in a really, really good game to open the season. they've really only gotten better from there. I like the Hamilton win. Hamilton's played some really, really tough opponents right now. I didn't have Ithaca in my ballot this past week. They're obviously under consideration. I kind of would tend to agree with you there, Scott, though. It's hard to gauge some of these teams. Ithaca is no doubt probably the best team in their region, and I really like what I've seen from them. I think they got some good young talent in the program. At this point, though, the one thing that does get me is they played Scranton, and now Scranton's a great team. But Scranton beat them 74-53, and that was a result. Again, teams can have off nights, but that was one that I kind of challenged me to keep Ithaca really, really high on my ballot, just because they didn't seem to be the kind of team maybe a lot of voters had thought they would be before that game. But they do have the win, over Catholic on the road, which is really good as well. So yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons there with Ithaca for me.
Who's the team you're pro and conning then?
DeSales is going to be the team that I'm going with. Again, this was a pick I had before last night. So it's one of those things that, as I told Scott today, is like coming back with a debatable right after they lose to Stevens isn't, ideal, but we did see them lose to Stevens last night, first loss of the season. I think DeSales is a good team, but I do think they've floated it up a little bit because of some losses ahead of them. When you look, going back to the SOS kind of conversation we had before, we just haven't seen them in enough big situations where they've really been tested. Their best win is probably over Messiah. Messiah's number 54 Massey right now. We just got done talking about Messiah, and I think a 929 winning percentage is good. A 15-1 record is really good. They're probably going to be the number one team in Region 4. But on the con side, they took that road loss to Stevens, didn't look very good, had an off night last night. And I think it exposed a little bit of their weak SOS and some of the maybe lack of opportunities we've seen them in big situations. And I should note this too, a team that plays a lot of really, really good teams, or at least more than what DeSales has played, probably doesn't drop as far as I'm guessing DeSales will drop in this next week's poll, because the voters can say, well, they did take this one loss, but they have these 4 or 5 really, really good wins. They're number 6 right now. I probably would have them more in the 9 to 12 range. I think they're definitely a top 15 team right now, just based on the eye test. But resume wise, I don't think it's there, along with some of the other teams that they're up there in the top 10 with right now.
Scott, what's your take?
I think teams that can accrue a really gaudy turnover differential against weak schedules, it's hard for us to know how good they are. And DeSales, their turnover differential is 15.3, which among your top handful of teams is second only to Christopher Newport, 15.8. Third is Trinity, Texas at 11.8, like further down. And I don't know what the turnover differential was last night versus Stevens, but it probably wasn't plus 15. And I think you see teams look a lot more pedestrian when they play a team that can take care of the ball with some consistency. And again, Massey isn't everything, but the average Massey rating of a DeSales win this year is 250. And so it makes it, again, we don't have certainty over how good they are. By losing to Stevens last night, kind of feels like they're more in a 25 to 40 range than a 5 to 15 range. But again, that's one data point that's trying to give us a little more certainty than we had before, but it's still fairly uncertain.
And that's what voters get stuck in the middle of, right? It's this, okay, not a lot of data, but geez, who else am I going to put there? And so a team will end up floating up a little bit, especially as we talked about earlier, maybe losses are voted on heavier. And so a team will drop a little bit more significantly than maybe just leave them alone and just let them be if you feel that they're still the better team than the team you have behind them. So great perspective on all that, guys. I really appreciate it. Certainly fun to figure it all out. I'll say this much, for a change, the women's top 25, maybe not as cut and dry and as easy to do as you normally would on any given week.
Yeah, I think the WIAC especially is making that, the WIAC and the NESCAC are making that difficult, because I think there's a ton of quality teams there that someone's got to lose, right? Half the teams have to lose when they play each other. And I'm not sure that UW-Stevens Point is not a top 30 team, right? Or that Hamilton is not a top 30 team, but they could be the 5th or 6th best team in their conference. And I think those losses can kind of hide the fact that these teams are strong.
Yeah, the WIAC has been super intriguing this year. I've really enjoyed seeing, because there's so many teams right now. Even you look at Platteville, I think they were 2-5 entering the Whitewater game yesterday, and they end up going to Whitewater and beating them. You just really can't figure the WIAC out this year.
No, good call. And I think we can't figure it out on the men's side either. To be completely honest, it's a bonker year, and it's been fun. Hey, guys, I really appreciate it. I know you got a lot of fun stuff ahead. We'll look forward to getting you guys back on, try and get you some other blood in here to mix it up a little bit. But you guys always have wonderful work and do your homework. Really appreciate it. Riley, great Substack and blog. We appreciate that. And Scott, I always love your detail and data on Twitter. We should point out, hopefully we'll get both of you guys to help us make mock selections in about 6 weeks time, right?
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
You're not denying it, so that's a start. I'll take that. Hey guys, thanks so much. You guys have a great rest of your evenings. Enjoy the rest of the week, the rest of the games, whatever, and we'll look forward to having you back on the show soon.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Riley and Scott join us here on Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up some work that we need to get done and answer some questions that have moved in, I think. I thought I saw some questions. We'll try and answer some questions. Listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC WBCA studios. More after this.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us. It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us. All of us.
To stop sexual assault. Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% will go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. If you've got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Sports.com. Join us on Facebook or YouTube, where we'll simulcast the show, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville or Facebook.com/D3Hoopsville. I know Facebook's somehow complaining about some issues. I do see we had something odd. We'll figure that all out and work our way towards solving that in the future. But in the meantime, I know I got an email from Charlie. Charlie, thank you for your time. We will email you back because I know what happened and why it's confusing. We'll get back to you on that. So bear with me. It's just hard to explain on air what you're looking at there, but so I'll email him back. His question was regarding committee rosters and the like. We usually post those at d3hoops.com. I don't know if we've posted the latest. We'll get back to that. The women's handbook from this season is not out yet. As we said at the top of the show, it will be out very soon. They're trying to clean up some errors apparently that they had in it. I'm not exactly sure all the details. Apparently there's some new software they're using, etc. That will be out soon. Men's handbook is out. And a reminder, we will be talking to both committee chairs next Thursday, which is a 1 p.m. Eastern show. It's a midday show, as I have to work that evening. So in next week, we will have both committee chairs on the show. And apparently there may be some developments between now and then that we will get to talk about as well. There's developments, obviously, because we're heading closer and closer to regional ranking time. First regional rankings will take place, if memory serves, on February 8th. I'm literally trying to remember the calendar and can't. I got it in front of me now. Yeah, February 8th will be the first regional rankings. Men will be February 7th, women February 8th. Second week rankings, men February 14th, women 15th. Thirds are the 21st and 22nd. Final games of the regular season, everything has to be buttoned up by the 26th when the committees will do all their heavy lifting. We find out about who's in the tournaments on the 27th. We find the brackets, and we start play on March 3rd. Obviously, it's a bit away. We will have the marathon on Thursday, February 2nd. I think our start time is going to be about noon. And we hope to go for about 8, 9, maybe more hours. We're starting to book that up and looking forward to piecing that all together. So again, next week we'll be on the air on Monday, 7 o'clock like we normally are. Tuesday at 1 o'clock. One show that is up in the air right now as to what time it will be is February 20th. I am taking a red-eye back from Arizona the night before. I am expected in town in time to do that show. The question would be, will I be awake? So look forward to that one, February 20th. That's coming up. That'll be conference championship week pretty much for everyone. Trying to remember. So the other news we talked about at the top of the show, Saul Ross is applying for Division II, according to reports out of Texas, which don't surprise us because we've been hearing and had pretty much good information on that news for several months now. I think my conversations date back to October. I could be wrong, but that's about when I remember I thought conversations that the Texas Board of Regents had given them the approval to move forward. But from what I heard, and again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident in my information. But from what I heard, the Board of Regents didn't really have any information given to them as to how Saul Ross was going to put this together and pay for it and all of that information. Speculation has been that they think that saving on travel in the ASC in Division III is going to give them the money to pay for scholarships. Well, you play more games in Division II, so I don't see where that savings is. You're going to travel maybe shorter trips, but more trips. And that conference runs the gamut. That conference has teams who are giving the max scholarships available to Division II and other sports, and those who are giving out very few scholarships. And remember, those scholarships are not full rides. Those are all broken up. So if you're going in, say, in basketball, giving out 3 scholarships total for a 15-member team, how far is that really getting you? So there's a lot of concern that this is not the right move for Saul Ross, despite their isolation in the ASC, which is understandable, that this is just not going to work out. And maybe they'll prove us and everybody else wrong with a looming enrollment cliff. I think any move where you are increasing your budget in some capacity is a risky venture. What I think will be fascinating on the flip side of that is when we get the official information as to who applied to Division III. Because I think that's going to be telling. Division III had a max of 4. I don't remember. I know there was some discussion about, maybe it was just me, put a moratorium on that and open it up a little bit more than that. But Division III did just vote that you must have a conference invitation to do so. This year's group will not apply to that. That will not apply. Next year's application group, it will apply. For example, Bob Jones is finishing up its 3rd year of provisional, still does not have a conference home. And there's others. They're not the only ones. So I want to see who's coming. I don't think we're seeing yet, at this point, any more U Hartfords who will enter officially Division III next year and will be a member of the CCC. And we'll get more insight on that coming up on that marathon show. I don't think we're going to see necessarily a huge move by a D1 school if we haven't heard about it already, because I can't imagine that would have happened without some type of news breaking about it prior. That said, after the U Hartford debacle and how that all happened, maybe some administration is going to keep that real close to the vest. And I know I'm way out on a limb, and this is going way off the deep end on this, but there are a lot of schools in Division I. I think in particular a number of the HBCUs that I think Division III would be the right home. I know HBCUs have a rich history, and I think they are tremendous institutions for the most part. I think there's some, like with all groups, that maybe aren't for the future. But the amount of money you need to maintain and give your athletic department to keep it running in Division I in this day and age is tough. And I think for HBCUs who have a lot of financial issues and weight and complaints and whatever, maybe unloading and coming Division III and making and transitioning the history to the Division III is the right move. I think they'd be more successful. I think they'd have a chance at touting themselves even more. I don't think you lose some of the aspects you already have. I think you could still sell some of those events that they put on national television because you're still the HBCUs. And by the way, I'm not talking all of them. So maybe those who do come to Division III aren't the ones who have Division III or don't have national attention anyway. So it's irrelevant. My point. But maybe it's pie in the sky. Maybe I'm naive of something. And it's certainly something I want to talk to some who know HBCUs better than me. But I have wondered for a while now if maybe the right home, right, they don't get the money from Division I that way. Remember, athletic departments in Division I, the athletic departments get a check from the NCAA, i.e. from membership, per the contract for their athletic departments. And it's 7 figures minimum, I believe. You would lose that. I get that. But I think you save in the long run. I think U Hartford is going to show that. Again, maybe I'm naive. Maybe it's pie in the sky. Who knows? Just a thought I've had for a long time. We're going to wrap up this show, double checking to see if we've gotten any questions in any of our mediums. Travis says, what does the National Committee use to actually calculate SOS? Do they have their own tool they plug the numbers into? Who is actually crunching the numbers? Travis, that is something that is universal across all Division III sports. It's in the handbooks. Your SOS is basically your winning percentage, meaning, let me phrase that. Your SOS is your opponent's winning percentage, meaning the winning percentage of your opponents, not counting the game you played them. You don't get docked for beating a team and their winning percentage goes down. So your game in that winning percentage is not accounted for. And then your opponent's winning percentage. Now that has been a sticking point. Apparently what we did not understand over the last few years is that that's a little bit more narrow a window of your opponent's winning percentage than we thought. We thought it literally was your opponent's winning percentage, but there are some games that are not considered in that. And to be honest, I don't remember that right now, and I'll have to go back on that. But 2/3 of the math is your opponent's winning percentage, and 1/3 of the math is the opponent's winning percentage. There's one caveat on the men's side. On the men's side, they put a weight on home and away. So all the games you play at home, that SOS number has the winning percentages, I should say, the winning percentages have a multiplication of 0.75, I believe. And all of your away games have a weight of 1.25. The idea is you get a little bit of a boost for playing a game on the road. On the women, they do not use that metric. The men's basketball is one of two, I think, in all of Division III that are still using that weight. And there's a debate of whether that needs to continue. You know the formula. I apologize. Well, that was good for anybody else who might be listening. Just wonder who is actually calculating. No, it's not committee members. Absolutely not. That math is done by NCAA statistics. So they all get every single result at the NCAA. And any result that counts. And we should point out that counts. That SOS does not count games that are not Division III for the most part. There is an overall SOS that can be used if absolutely necessary. But primary criteria, it's your Division III opponents. And I will add, and this is very rare, but if you don't play 70% of your games against Division III opponents, then not all your games count, except if they fit the secondary. And we're getting to the rabbit hole here a little bit. There's ways of games counted as regional. Let's start there, okay? And Travis, you may know this. I'm just going to say it anyway. Your game is regional if it's against a conference foe, i.e., if the UAA or C2C conference, no matter who your conference mate is, it's considered a regional game, no matter where they're located. It's a regional game if you're played inside one of your specific region, one of the 10 regions. It's a conference game if it's inside one of the 4 geographic regions. For example, New York and Pennsylvania is a geographic region. All in New England, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Virginia, I can't remember, is another region. I don't have it in front of me. There's others, okay? So there's 4 of those. And in any game within 500 miles. Not where it's played, the 2 schools. Whoever the 2 schools are, 500 miles apart, no matter where they play the game. Well, it does matter in terms of if X is playing at Y or Y is playing at X. We have found times where X playing at Y is a regional, is inside 500, but Y playing at X is outside 500. It's wonky. But my point is, if you come to Las Vegas at the D3Hoops.com Classic and you 2 schools are within 500 miles of one another, it will count as a regional game. If you play more than 70% of your games against Division III opponents that fit the criteria of regional games, then all your games count in Division III. In Division III. So you can play someone who does not fit those criteria, but as long as you hit 70%, they all count, except if it's non-Division III. So the SOS is measuring what counts. So in Laverne's case, for example, those 7 games against non-Division IIIs doesn't pop up until you go way in the weeds on secondary criteria. And to be honest, it won't come up. It might come up in the region, but it won't come up nationally. The NCAA statistical group puts those numbers together. They are in front of a computer when the committees meet. They have a screen in front of them that has all that data in front of them. And that math is double checked. When that information comes out, trust me, there's guys like Scott Peterson and there's guys like the Snyder guys, the Snyder brothers, who are doing the math themselves as they understand the math to be done. And if they see glaring errors, trust me, I start getting phone calls. And we start trying to figure out what had changed. And that happened last year when we were trying to figure out why something looked different with the opponent winning percentage. It wasn't coming up as we all thought it should. And it really had been that way for a few years, but no one had been paying attention. Or not paying attention. We just didn't dive into the hole. So anyway, that number is not being punched in. My committee members are not sitting there going, okay, so it's so-and-so and so-and-so, and putting all that data together, and then they come up with a resume. That resume comes up in front of them. It's there in front of them. It's got all the data they need. They also have common opponents. They have some other data. I can't go into all of it because we don't know. But that stuff's all just like in Division I. Division I sits in front of their computers, and their information auto-populates from the information that the NCAA statistics group has gotten and put together. So yeah, no, there's nobody, and everybody uses the same NCAA tool. How they interpret the information, though, is where this becomes different. You can get 10 groups of 10 different people from all 10 regions. And they likely, for the most part, are going to be very similar, but you're going to have differences. And I think, and to go back to Mike Schauer's point, he said, listen to Dave. Well, we had a conversation doing our mock selections last year on the men's side where we got down to the last one. And I had a strong feeling the committee was going to do it one way and select a particular team. The rest of the guys didn't see it that way. They wanted to go the other direction. So they went with a different team based on how they were reading the criteria. It turns out the committee had the conversation that I was having. That doesn't mean I'm on page with the committee. It just means that I happen to read it the same way they were reading it. Or, let me rephrase that, I was reading it in a similar way that committee in particular in that moment was seeing those criteria points and making a selection based on those criteria points. Again, I think if you took 10 groups of 10 different people who know how to do this, each from each region, and put them in 10 different rooms and gave them all the same data, for the most part, you would get exactly the same results. You'd have exceptions to that. And that's where the human element of this comes in. If it was a computerized system that just spurted out based on locked-in set points on criteria, I don't think it'd be as interesting. It doesn't add the nuance, and it'd be boring. We'd know who the selections are because we'd already have it auto-populated for us. I guess I was just wondering if that is exclusive to them or is always public. Oh no, it's exclusive to them. They don't. The NCAA doesn't. I should say the NCAA. It's hard to say that. I don't want to, because remember, there's a lot of ways of describing the NCAA. But no, we don't see that screen. We've never seen that screen. We get data. We do get data points to understand. For example, when the regional rankings come out, we get spreadsheets where it says the team, their overall record, their what's called in-region record, which is essentially their actual Division III record. In a case like Laverne women, there's going to be a difference of 7 games on that. Their SOS, their results versus regionally ranked opponents when that becomes prevalent. And there was another number, right? I'm forgetting now but there is a spreadsheet basically of several data points. So we see those data points based on the X point. So if the committee is coming out on rankings on February 7, it is February 5th that data is good through the end of Sunday night. Matt Snyder's website is based a lot in the hard numbers, the SOS numbers, for example, the opponent's winning percentage, the opponent's winning percentage, on what we understand that math to be that they are getting in front of them as well. And when we see those spreadsheets, that's where we double check that. So, Matt will go to a system and go, okay, I had so-and-so locked in at an SOS of 0.573, and the NCAA says it's 0.573. Okay. Or it's 0.572. Well, okay. Wait, the NCAA says it's 0.552. Wait a minute. Why? And that's where we'll double check how they're doing that math. But the system they're using, no, that's exclusive to those committees, and they don't share it outside. There's been talk about getting us inside to see how it's done, to give us a sense of what it looks like and all of that. But no, there's no outside system to look at. So when we're doing it on this show, for example, we're using Matt Snyder's system. We're using regional rankings. We're using information that we've hashtag gleaned and other ways to break that down. So we're not. No one has access to that except the regional RACs, the regional advisory committees of each region. So the 10 regions in men's and women's basketball each have a RAC. Those groups have the access to that information. And then the national committee has access to that information. And remember, those RACs are advising. Just because they said here's 1 through 10 doesn't mean the national committee agrees that's 1 through 10. National committee can change it. That's their purview. The RAC is advising. People get up in arms in that. It bugs me. Well, the Northeast or the Region 1 put it this way. That's how it should be. No, the National Committee disagrees because the National Committee is trying to make sure that how Region 1 does it is how Region 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are doing it. That everyone's doing it in the same way, that they're measuring things in the same way. They're giving the appropriate weight, and I'm using that term very loosely. They're trying not to put weight on things. But when it comes down to brass tacks, your decision in Region 3 to choose that team using that criteria is the same way that in Region 6 they use the criteria to make that choice as well. So no, we don't get access to that, but we understand how it works through many conversations over the years with committee members. We understand what that data looks like. We understand what it's presenting them and whatnot. And then when it comes to putting a bracket together, there's a whole nother mapping system they get to look at. And no, they do not look at that system until after they've made selections. A lot of people think that sometimes the committees make selections based on, oh, this will be easier financially if we get Team X in there because we can make it. No, believe it or not, decisions are not made that way. They make all the selections of the teams, then they take a break. Then they come back and they start mapping it all out. Hope that all made sense, Travis. I'm not sure if it did. I could be wrong. Thank you, Aunt BJ. We love the Hoopsville sign over our shoulder too. It was made in Illinois, by the way. We should go remind people of the history. We'll try and do it next show. The Hoopsville sign over my head, made by a great group outside Augustana or in Rock Island, I believe. I'm 99% sure it was an Augustana fan in the Rock Island, a special needs, for lack of a better description, company made that for us. We were hoping to maybe get a couple more from them. There was a promise at one point of getting us one every season, but we don't need one every season. There'd be a lot of woodwork around here, but we do love it. That's one of our favorite things. Awesome, Travis. I'm glad that answered it. I know I got a little tongue twisty there for a bit, but I'm glad that answered the question. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up. Again, Monday we'll be on the air, 7 o'clock Eastern time. No idea who we'll talk to yet, but we'll get some good guests as we always do. Next Thursday, a reminder, 1 o'clock Eastern. Oh, you know what? No, I forgot something. Hold on a second. I apologize. I totally forgot to do something that I wanted to bring up that deserves some attention, and I was going to do it while the guys were talking about their selections, and then I blanked. Is the easiest way to say that. So if you could humor me for a moment. I just need to look for one other thing. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind putting this together, and that's just sad. But I will get it here in a second as soon as I can find wherever there it is. Something might pop up on the screen here. I hope not. Where did it go? There it is. There it is. Great. All right. We always really appreciate the sports information directors who help us with our program. They are tremendous. And this is College Sports Communicators, formerly known as COSIDA, as College Sports Information Directors of America. CSC Membership Appreciation Week this week. College Sports Communicators celebrates Membership Appreciation Week, presented by ESPN, January 18th through the 24th. Athletics, communications, and creative professionals coordinate public and media relations, websites, social media, graphic design, videography, statistics, and much more as the strategic communicators for college, university athletic departments, and conference offices throughout North America. Thank you for all the athletic communications and creative staff members do in support of our student athletes, coaches, and administrations. For more information, check out collegesportscommunicators.com/celebrate CSC. There were a number of sports information directors who helped us out. That's their old school title that helped us out today. I want to thank RJ at Guilford. I want to thank Justin at Trinity, Texas, Sierra at Smith for her help, and Brett at Wheaton, and of course all their staffs as well for their assistance. They have helped us out, whether sending us pictures or setting up some stuff or whatever the case may be. All of them did great work. We really appreciate it, and congratulations to all of them. They deserve much the attention. And I know there's a lot of people out there who tune in to this show who are CSC members or sports information directors, athletic communicators, whoever they may be. They've been invaluable to this show. We've worked with them in my professional career. We work with them quite a bit on this show, and they certainly deserve the love and attention. They do not get enough of it, plain and simple. And we hope that if you see someone out there who's doing the live stats or doing the live stream or whatever, first off, give them less of a hard time. And second of all, thank them for all their hard work. So thanks to CSC Group. Especially. I also want to thank the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Women's Basketball Coaches Association, and D3Hoops.com for their support of our show. And, of course, thanks to Blue Frame Technology and Huddle for helping us promote this show and find a portal for it as well. Yes, MPJ, we have lots of fans in the Midwest, and it's wonderful. We're going to take a break because this voice is done. I have pushed it way too far. I may not be able to speak tomorrow at all, but c'est la vie. We'll be back on the air on Monday at 7 o'clock. Hold on. Scott says, I'm so curious how results versus common opponents and results head-to-head are actually displayed on committee members. There's so many potential comparisons you'd want to make. You think a dynamic tool is needed, not a static report. Scott, I think it's dynamic. Sorry, we're about to go on the air, but Scott has a good point. Scott Peterson. Scott, I think that info for them is dynamic. I don't think it's a static. We see it as a static report. We see it as a spreadsheet on a PDF in the regional rankings. That isn't how the committee, sees it. No, not at all. They definitely have a dynamic. I've been told where you can click on one thing and it reveals 10 other things. You can click on something else. It reveals a bunch more. No, theirs definitely is dynamic. Maybe we can ask the committee members. I don't know if we can get screenshots. We can work at something to try and show what it looks like. That's actually something worth trying to tackle. I know it would take some time to get it. But it is not a static report. It's not a spreadsheet. It's not just a flat-looking thing. It is definitely dynamic. I've been told that. There's definitely some aspects to it that helps dive into that data. And maybe it's not as dynamic as I'm addressing it, but there's definitely some dynamicness to it, for lack of a better description. I'm just was saying that the PDF that we see has that data. But that's what we see. And with that, I think we're going to wrap it up because I am definitely pushing it. Ron, thanks for tuning in, buddy. I appreciate your support as well. Blazer Bobcat was tuned in tonight. Appreciate that. You all take care. Thanks for joining us on the show. We look forward to having you back here on Monday evening and the shows ahead. Tell your friends to tune in as well, because if you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen and watch Hoopsville. Have a great night, everybody.